Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. More information is available over at thomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code Tom. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, T-H-O-M, xchairtom.com. It's the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Living in the Chemical Age, How an Ounce of Prevention Can Protect Your Family from a World of Toxins by Dr. Janet Newman. This is from Chapter 1, How Did We End Up Here? In modern history, we entered the industrial age with the invention of steam-driven engines in the 1760s. In the technological age, the second industrial age, which took place between 1870 and 1914, we saw the advancement and expansion of both manufacturing and electrically powered systems. In the last quarter of the 20th century, we entered the information age when computers and the internet became the norm. Famous author and editor Leon Weitzeiler wrote a poignant book review in the New York Times on January 11, 2015, which said, quote, "Every technology is used before it is completely understood. There's always a lag between innovation and the apprehension of its consequences," end quote. While these great advances in modern history have made aspects of our lives easier and more convenient, a negative byproduct has resulted that we are beginning to recognize. It now seems that we are in the full-blown midst of what I refer to as the chemical age, an era in which our environments and bodies are the constant recipient of a deluge of chemicals, which are the unfortunate byproducts of our drive for advancement. This bombardment of toxic chemical exposure is silent and in most cases hidden, but it has the potential to be deadly. These chemicals are in our food and in our tap water, And on any given day, we're exposed to dozens of toxins in our environment, as well as in the products we choose to clean our homes and to use on our bodies. For the first time in human history, the New England Journal of Medicine tells us children born today will have a shorter projected lifespan than their parents, in large part due to obesity-related diseases, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, etc. They will likely get diagnosed with a disease at an earlier age and die earlier than their parents. Generations have always outlived the generation before them, but not anymore. People are getting sicker earlier. But why? A growing number of doctors and scientists now recognize many illnesses result from excessive exposure to toxic materials in our environment. The body tends to become inflamed and accumulate fat when storing excess toxins. This is a global wake-up call. How did we get to this point? And what can you do to keep yourself and your family safe? Many scientists and notable organizations, such as the Agency for Toxic Substances and the Disease Registry, have begun to study the impact of toxic substances on humans, which is an essential first step to fixing the problems we're encountering. For instance, for example, the incidence of colon and rectal cancer, once considered rare in young people, is on the rise in people in their 20s and 30s. According to the American Cancer Society, people born in 1990 have double the colon cancer and quadruple the risk of rectal cancer compared to someone born in 1950. This ominous trend is part of a larger trend toward increased rates of cancer in general. According to Cancer.org, today 1 in 2 males and 1 in 3 males have a lifetime risk of developing cancer. Cancer is widely known to be related to lifestyle and environment. The American Cancer Society says that only 5 to 10% of all cancer cases can be attributed to genetic defects. Almost 25 to 30% of all cancer deaths today are due to tobacco. As many as 30 to 35% are linked to diet and obesity, and 15 to 20% are due to infections, mostly liver cancer related to hepatitis C or alcohol use. The remaining percentage, somewhere between 5 and 25%, is mostly due to environmental pollutions, radiation exposure, and stress. The emerging science of epigenetics, which looks at how the environment impacts your genes, is showing us that toxins that can activate the genes responsible for causing cancer. The choices we make have a powerful effect on which genes are switched on and off, and ultimately on whether we get cancer or not. However, cancer isn't the only concern. The 2013 documentary film The Human Experiment points out that 7.3 million American couples have trouble conceiving or carrying to term. This is a 49% increase since 1988, with the biggest increase in women under 25. Autism and other childhood diseases are also on the rise. According to the CDC, in the 1980s, about 1 in 10,000 children had autism. In 1999, 1 in 500 kids had autism. In 2008, it was 1 in 88 kids. And in 2016, it was 1 in 68 children. It's 5 times more common in boys. The current figures for autism are 1 in 42 boys and 1 in 189 girls. In the past 50 years, childhood asthma has gone up 80%, leukemia 74%, ADHD 53%, and life-threatening birth defects are up 100%. Something in our environment must be playing a role in these staggering trends. Did you know that air pollution is rising in world cities at an alarming rate? According to the World Health Organization, outdoor air pollution has grown 8% globally every year since 2012, with billions of people around the world now exposed to dangerous air. Dr. Flavia Bustreo, Assistant Director General for Family, Women's and Children's Health for the World Health Organization, has said, quote, as urban air quality declines, the risk of stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, and chronic and acute respiratory diseases, including asthma, increases for the people who live in them. When dirty air blankets our cities, the most vulnerable are the most.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Wow. The con man in the White House is, trying to con us at so many different levels. We'll go through a few of them today. But while he's doing that, there are con men out there who are also trying to con us, in ways that are just clear, transparent cons that don't require being president to run a con or being the billionaire or a pretend billionaire real estate mogul to run a con job. It's really pretty amazing what's going on. And it's Anything Goes Friday, so I'll be picking up your calls in a few minutes, but I just had to tell you about this. This is hysterical. I got an email yesterday. In fact, it came in while I was on the air. And the subject line was a password that I had commonly used maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And, as all this stuff has been going on, I've been obviously changing the passwords that I use. But this was an old password that I recognized because I used it a lot. And dash my name. That was the subject field. I was like, well, that's interesting. And the email says, blank is one of your passwords, and I will now cut to the chase. You do not know anything about me, whereas I know you very well, and you are most likely thinking, why are you getting this email, correct? I place malware on adult sites, videos, sex sites, and you know what? You visited this porn site to have fun, if you know what I mean. And when you got busy enjoying these videos, your browser started working as an RDP, remote desktop protocol, with a back door which provided me accessibility to your system and also your webcam controls. Immediately after that, the software program obtained all your contacts from your Messenger, Facebook, and email. Exactly what I have done, or have I done? It's simply your bad luck that I'm aware of your misadventures. Later, I give in more days than I probably should have investigating. See, clearly an English speaker did not write this, right? This is a Nigerian scam. I mean, this is just the classic Nigerian scam. That I probably should have investigating in your life and generating a double-screen videotape. First part plays the video you have been viewing, and second half shows the capture from your web camera. It's you doing naughty things. Honestly, I want to forget exactly about you and let you get on with your life, and I'm about to provide you 2 options that can make it happen. The option is to either ignore this email, bad for you and your family, or pay me $1,100 to end this matter for life. What should you do? Let's explore those 2 options in more detail. Alternative 1 is to ignore my message. Let me tell you what will happen if you choose this option. I will no doubt send out your video recording to all your contacts, including family members, colleagues, and many others. It will not protect you from the humiliation your family will need to feel when family and friends find out about your dirty video from me. Wise option is to send me $1,100. We will name it my confidentiality fee. Let's discuss what happens if you pick this choice. Your little secret will remain our secret. I'll keep my mouth silent. After you pay, I will let you move on with your daily life and family as though none of this ever occurred. We'll make the transfer by Bitcoins. If you don't know how to do this, simply search how to buy Bitcoins in Google search. And then he puts in his Bitcoin address and says it's case sensitive. Important, you have 1 day to make the payment. I have a special pixel within this email, and now I know that you have read this message. You must not tell nobody what you would be using the Bitcoin for, or they possibly will not give it to you. The task is to acquire Bitcoin can take a short time, so do not delay. If I do not get the Bitcoins, I will certainly send your video to all your, and it goes on like that, right? So I forwarded this to Louise going, what? And she takes a paragraph out of it and plugs it into Google. And what popped up was this email from the Mirror, the British newspaper, from like 2 weeks ago. It's by Jeff Parsons. Phishing scams are something every internet user has to be aware of, but a current scam doing the rounds attempts to blackmail unsuspecting victims by claiming to already have their password and to have used it to install spy malware on their computer. And then, and then they quote from one of the scam emails. Well, I actually placed a malware on a port site. And guess what? You visited this website to have fun. You know what I mean. In other words, it's word for word from the one I got, right? And it's a scam. What's happened is that at some point, one of the sites that I had, and it might have been, Macy's got a giant hack. I'm trying to think of where I might have used this password 5, 6, 7 years ago. There was another company, and I'm forgetting which company it is, that in 2018 acknowledged that in 2014 they got hacked, and all the hackers got was emails and passwords. But that's all they need, right? They send you to your email a copy of your password, and you go, oh my God, and then they make all these wild claims. Similarly, Sean, this is happening, there's all kinds of this stuff going on. Sean got this phone call, and this, by the way, there was just a big arrest 2 days ago on this IRS scam, and I'm guessing this is the same group. Sean got this phone call. Check this thing out.
We have been trying to reach you. This call is officially a final notice from IRS. Internal Revenue Service. The reason of this call is to inform you that the IRS is filing lawsuit against you. To get more information about this case file, please call immediately on our department number 972
I'm not going to run the whole number out there. Just I don't want somebody to call it by accident. It's no doubt one that scammers are getting. But then it continues.
2998. Thank you. EXT you wish spoken here.
Okay, so that's the end of the. So Sean's getting that, right, and it's not the only one, right? You got several of these calls, yeah, and saying, you owe money. Another friend of ours got scammed by hooking up on a dating site with somebody who then, I need to go here and I need to go there, and I'm sorry we can't get together. And then suddenly I'm in Oman and I need money to get some of my cargo out of storage so that I can then send you even more money. So send me $1,000, please. Right? And there's just like all these scams going on. It's mind-boggling. So, apparently it's the perfect time for it. You got a scammer in chief in the White House, but I'm just curious if you have received any and you want to add to our list here. Louise found a list of email scams over on Wikipedia. There's the Primitiva Lottery International Promotions scam where they say you've won a lottery. There's the FBI email. The FBI Anti-Terrorist and Monetary Crimes Division is looking into your involvement in a crime. Give us your bank account number so that we can make sure everything's okay. There's the hitman scam where they say that a hitman has been hired by a close friend to kill you. I'm the hitman. Would you rather pay me more than your friend? The online dating scam. This usually starts at an online dating scam. This one, unlike the one I just shared with you, then it moves into an email chat room or social media site, and they talk people into sending them naked pictures. And then they actually post them on websites and ask for money to take them down. Maybe a very obscure website that only you and the poster are aware of, but oh my God, there's my picture on the website. And then they add, there have been no reports that indicate that the records are actually removed once the payment has been made. The romance scam, that's what I told you about. Job scams. People seeking a job post a resume on an internet job site. The victim is invited to click on a link to apply for the job. Provides a high salary. It's customized to look like what was in their resume. If they click the apply for the job link, they're taken to an application form that asks for the normal information plus your social security number, your date of birth, the name of your bank account, and your name of your bank and your account number so that we can deposit your paycheck, direct deposit, et cetera. And then with that information, they empty your bank account. So all this stuff going on, and then in the midst of this, of course, the giant con job that's going on in the White House. So fascinating stuff. There's like four of us here, right, in this studio right now. There's me, there's Sean, running the audio board and producing the show. There's Nate running the video board and producing the show. There's Sheer in there answering the phone. We've got Nigel and Sue in the UK, and Louise is at home right now working on the show. But there's a bunch of us who work on the show. But of the four of us in this room, two of us have been the recipients of these scams. Three of us? Oh, Shira too? Sure. Oh, she got the IRS scam. So three of the four of us in the last 2 months have gotten these scams. So I just find this fascinating. So I wanted to put that out, and it's nice to sometimes take a little bit of a breather from Donald Trump, and see what you've got. But like I said, it's Anything Goes Friday, and so whatever you'd like to talk about is just fine with me. Stephen in Airmont, New York. Hey, Stephen, what's on your mind? Thanks for listening to SiriusXM.
Hi, Tom. I would have preferred to have talked about the Nancy DeVos vandalism of the boat and her relationship to Eric Prince and how bad.
Oh, but that's not an issue, Stephen. She has 9 more mega yachts. That was only one of her $40 million yachts.
Back to the IRS scam thing.
Yeah.
I got a couple of these calls, and I actually took the call because I know the protocol of IRS contact.
Right. The IRS never calls you. They always send you a letter. They never call you. If you get
it was unbelievable. And the guy, he identified himself as Alex Smith in a very, very thick accent, which which I would say was either, you know, like Indian or Pakistan. It was, and I was. So then I hung up, and I called back, and I broke into my accent as a guy named Rajiv. I have a character that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rajiv, Mr. Agent Smith, how may I help you? And the guy started to laugh, and I said to him, the reason you're laughing is because you're a scam artist. And he just started to curse at me, and then he hung up the phone.
Yeah.
That's how it went.
What a great story. That's like when we lived in Vermont, there was a storyteller.
No offense to people from that part of the world, but, you know, that guy.
Well, this thing in the New York Times a couple days ago about busting up the IRS sting said that they arrested 7 or 8 or 9 people here in the United States who were running it, but they were running it through boiler rooms in India. And the boiler rooms in India would do the initial work, and then once they had a fish on the hook, they would pass it back to somebody in the United States who was an American with an American accent and an American phone number that they could spoof as an IRS number, and they would do that. But there was also
the whole thing was infuriating.
Yeah, it's crazy. Thanks a lot, Stephen, for sharing that story. There was this guy in Vermont who was telling us, he was a storyteller in Vermont, how he and his wife had a competition whenever a scammer would call them, or a telemarketer for that matter, would call them. They had a competition between the two of them, the husband and wife, to see who could keep the telemarketer on the line the longest, right? Telemarketer would say, well, Mr. Johnson, how are you today? And he'd go, well, I don't know, my back is kind of hurting, and my leg, and how long can you drag it out, right, before they realize that they're being played with and they hang up on you? I'd rather just block the calls. But anyhow, we'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And, of course, there's all the ways that we're being scammed by Donald Trump and the people in his cabinet, and Scott Pruitt and Ryan Zinke and Mick Mulvaney. Wow. And welcome back. Oh, let's see here. Don, watching Free Speech TV in Winnsboro, South Carolina. Hey, Don, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom, good to talk to you again. I've just been hearing some stuff on corporate media, talking head TV the last week or two, and they keep emphasizing that 2 representatives that I really don't care for. They're Speaker Ryan, and
right.
There's one from South Carolina. I can't think of his
Trey
name.
Gowdy?
He's a little, pardon me?
Trey Gowdy?
No, it's the one who was grilling the FBI agent so bad with his bad haircut and everything.
Oh, yeah.
From South Carolina.
Yeah.
I just can't think of his name. But anyhow, they're giving out a spiel that these representatives aren't running for office again, so what they're saying and what they're talking about is the truth in the way they feel. I believe that's not true in any way. I think they have bigger jobs lined up for them if they don't keep the lockstep with the conservatives and Republicans. It could be harmful to their future employment, which instead of making $200,000 or $300,000 a year with their congressional jobs, they're going to be making millions out in the public.
Yep.
And
I agree.
The talking heads keep saying they're actually telling the truth now because they have nothing to lose. And to me, that's not true in any way. And
yeah. No, these guys have jobs lined up as lobbyists for, it may be a big defense contractor, maybe a big bank. And so, yeah, they may take a shot at Trump or they may take a shot at whatever, but they're going to do it in a way that is not going to harm their employment prospects. They're not going to take a shot at the banks if that's what they're going to go for, or they're not going to just take a shot at the petro billionaires if that's who they're going to go work for. I mean, you want to know who each of these people are going to go work for, and I agree with you. I think they all have the jobs lined up in advance. You want to know who they're going to go work for, whether it's Jeff Flake or Bob Corker or Paul Ryan or whoever. Just look at who they're not criticizing. And, it would take a bit of analysis, but, it's just because they suddenly tell the truth about something certainly doesn't mean that they have become radical truth tellers and never will. Don, thanks for the call. I very well said. Cliff in Canyon Country, California. Hey, Cliff, what's on your mind? Cliff, watching us on Free Speech TV in Canyon Country, California? No Cliff. Usually Cliff's right there. We're down to, we got a minute left. JP on YouTube. Hey, JP, you got a minute And you got about a minute. What's up?
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
Good.
Very good. So I got called a few months ago, and it sent me into a frenzy because I had just, literally just closed or was about to close, I believe, on a house. I'm just turned 31, so I was very excited about not renting anymore and having all.
So you got the IRS scam call.
I don't think it was an IRS scam. I had a Wachovia account way back before Wells Fargo bought them, and I had switched over to Chase and had a barely red account at Wachovia. I mean, it was like 4 cents in the red. But these people called me and said that I owed hundreds of dollars and that I had already made a payment, and if I didn't make another payment soon, that like within a few days they were going to hit me, with court fees and all kinds of stuff. And I had to do my research, and I called them back and was able to get out from under it. So
yeah. Well, when anybody says, "Give me money over the phone right now," look out. Paul, JP, thanks for the call. It's good to hear from you. We'll be right back. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beats. More information is available over at thomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code Tom. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com. With you, and let's see here, Erwin in Missoula, Montana. Hey, Erwin, what's on your mind today?
Yes, Tom, how are you today?
I am great, but I'll get better, Erwin. How about you?
Well, quickly, I've been through the scam business. I normally don't answer my phone, and some actually leave messages now, and I traced the number, called the local police in New Jersey, and they told me to call the local police here, and I called the local police here, and they said they won't do anything because it's not worth their time. So I've gone through that. But what I want to talk today about is quite a while back there's reports of the ICE giving children antipsychotic medicines, and specifically Geodon.
Right.
Was one of them, and no one really knew about Geodon. Well, I was on Geodon for 15 years. I was misdiagnosed, and there's a condition called tardive dyskinesia that you get from antipsychotics.
I'm very familiar with it. We had several of the kids that we had taken in from the state mental hospital had been on things like Thorazine for years, and they had tardive dyskinesia, these involuntary twitches.
Yes, I developed them eventually with Geodon. It's supposed to be one of the safer ones, but it really messed up my system. And just looking at today at what's recommended, Geodon is not recommended for children.
Yeah. So
by the FDA. So I guess I just wanted to say that I don't know if this is still going on, but I just hope it isn't. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it is, as far as I can tell. And, on top of that, I mean, this is just how brutal it gets. There was one mother who is telling the story. Here it is right here. This is from thehill.com. The immigration officials told this little 8-year-old girl who was separated from her mother that her mother had abandoned her. And they told her this for week after week after week over the last 3 months while her mother was separated from her, to the point that the 8-year-old came to believe it, and her mother had abandoned her, was never coming back. And when they finally reunited them yesterday, the little girl refused to talk to her mother. Wow. She's like, "You abandoned me. You're dead to me." So. And so, I mean, this is the brutality of this system, and apparently there are people within the system who are just, gleefully inflicting more violence and brutality on these children. This is Trump country. It's terrible. Erwin, thanks for the call. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Anything Goes Friday, and we're having fun. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this. It's the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Seize the Time, the story of the Black Panther Party and Huey P. Newton by Bobby Seale. This is from page 85, a subchapter titled Huey Backs the Pigs Down. And there are a few words in here that I'll be filling in, as it were. They're walking, he says, one day as we were walking out of the office, I guess we'd been there about a month or so, a pig passed by. He saw us coming out of the office with shotguns and pistols on our sides. About 6 or 7 of us came out of the office there in the daytime, and we looked at the pig as he passed by, and he jumped on his radio because he saw us coming out of the office with these pieces and stuff. We had just finished field stripping weapons, learning about 00 buckshot, learning about the 9mm and the .45, and having a political education session. We had a .45 and a .357 Magnum in the group and a couple of M1s. We had 3 or 4 shotguns by then. We bought up guns like a son of a bitch then. The pig went down 2 blocks and turned around, came back up the other side of the street. They were building rapid transit, BART, right down from Grove Street there, and we went up the other side of the boulevard and came back. We readily assessed that the pigs were ready to see what the F was happening, that this pig had radioed in, and he was running it down, how he had, quote, seen some N-words come out of a place here with some guns and blop, blop, de bloop, etc., come out of this office with guns and stuff. He was radioing into other pigs to help get him. Huey had his father's car that day, and he goes through that whole thing. So anyhow, the police pull him over, and Huey got in the car, and the pig came up to the window. "You have any driver's license?" So Huey rolled the window down. That wasn't more than a 3 or 4 inch crack in the window. Huey handed his license out the window. "Is this your true name?" the pig said. And Huey said, "Yes, that's my true name, Huey P. Newton." "Is this your true address, 841 47th Street? And Huey said, "Yep, that's my true address, 841 47th Street. "And what are you doing with the guns?" And Huey said, "What are you doing with your gun?" This particular pig decided he wasn't going to argue, so he went back and got his little writing pad there where they fill out S-word. "Your true name is Huey P. Newton?" Huey said. "That's right." The pig wrote it down. "Your true address is 841 47th Street? Huey said, "That's right." The pig then looked at his license. "What's your phone number?" And Huey said, 5, and stopped and wouldn't say anything else. And the pig said, 5 what? And this is when all the S-word between the pig and the party and the pigs began. Huey said, "The Fifth Amendment. You ever heard of it? Don't you know about the constitutional right of a person not to testify against himself? 5, I don't have to give you anything but my identification, name, and address, so therefore I don't even want to talk to you. You can leave my car and leave me alone. I don't even want to hear you." "What do you mean?" the pig said. And Huey said, "Just what I said. The constitutional right of any man is that he doesn't have to testify against himself." And Huey had a big M1 sitting to his right with his hand on it. I had this 9mm sitting beside me, and Huey had this M1 at his side. Huey was driving. 4 other brothers were in the back seat. One of them was Bobby Hutton. They were being quiet because Huey told them to be quiet, and the pig is going crazy. He's by himself, and Huey's got all these black N-words in the car going for the MFer. Meanwhile, while the pig is trying to get bad, 3 cars drove up behind us and 1 in the front. Some more were in the driveway. Blop, 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 de blue. Then another car came in front of us. A pig jumped out of the car, walked up to our car, and said through the crack in the window with a hoggish voice trying to sound intimidating, "What's going on here?" And Huey said, "The same basic procedures that are supposed to go on." Huey rolled the window down another 5 or 6 inches. The pigs were looking at the guns in the car. "Can I see that pistol there?" one of the pigs said. "No, you can't see it," Huey told him. I was beginning to get skeptical about what was happening because he pointed to my 9mm pistol. Huey was on probation, and if they thought that this was Huey's pistol, I didn't know this law stuff the way Huey knew it, so I moved the pistol over beside me real close. It had been lying in the middle of the seat. I said, "No, you can't see it." Huey said, "No, you can't see the pistol, nor this," pointing to his rifle. "And you don't want to look, and I don't want you to look at it. You don't have to look at it." "Is that your pistol?" he asked Huey. And I said, "No, it's not his pistol, it's my pistol." I said that because I was thinking the man's going to jump on Huey because he already told me about the probation law. If he gets caught with a pistol, he's burned. But if he gets caught with a rifle, the man can't mess with him because his probation officer told him he can carry a rifle or shotgun, and he couldn't stop him. The pig said, "Can I see it or not?" So Huey said to me, "I'll talk." And then he said to the pig, "No, you can't see the pistol. Get away from the car. We don't want you around the car, and that's all there is to it." "Well, I can ask him if I can see his pistol or not," the pig says. So I says, "Well, you can't see my pistol." The MFers tried to get indignant. They were blabbing and oinking to each other about who in the hell we thought we were, and Constitution my ass, they're just turning it around. Then the pig said to Huey, "Who the hell do you think you are?" "Look, damn it," Huey said. He opened the car door. This is where Huey got mad. I mean, you have to imagine this N-word. He got mad because these dogs were going to carry on, and they were bracing up like they were bad. Huey didn't go for this at all. Huey got very mad. He opened up the door saying, "Who the hell do you think you are?" In the first place, this man, pointing at the pig, came up here and asked me for my license like he was citing me for a ticket or observation of some kind. This police officer is supposed to be carrying out his duty, and here you come talking about our guns? Huey put his hand around his M1 rifle and continued, "We have a constitutional right to carry the guns, and anyway, I don't want to hear it." The pigs backed up a couple of steps, and Huey was coming out of the car. Huey had his hand back in the car getting his M1. And you know, if you've ever seen Huey, he gets growly but articulate. He came out of the car with his M1. Huey knows this law so well that he wouldn't have had the one M1 loaded inside the car. So he came out of the car, he dropped around into the chamber right away. Clack, clop. "Who do you think you all are anyway?" Huey said to the pigs. And the pigs were all on the sidewalk harassing all the brothers and sisters who gathered around. "You move on down the street," said the pig. Huey started interrupting. "You don't have to move down the street. Don't go anywhere. These pigs can't keep you from observing. You have a right to observe an officer carrying out his duty." And these pigs, they listen to all this S-word, and it goes on from there. It's a great story. Seize the Time by Bobby Seale.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Speaking of scams, right? Sung Lee is tweeting. In fact, I'm going to follow Sung Lee right now. Tweeting, "Strong 4.1% growth under Trump in the second quarter would rank as the 5th strongest quarter of the Obama presidency." Yep. We are 4.1% right now. In the fourth quarter of 2009, we were 4.5% during the Obama presidency. In the fourth quarter of 2011, we were 4.7% during the Obama presidency. In the third quarter of 2014, we were 4.9% during the Obama presidency. And in the second quarter of 2014, we were 5.1%. Trump only gets 4.1%. But he went on TV this morning and told us all that it was the best in decades. He lied. He lied. That's pathetic, but, you know, hey, that's our president. I mean, you know, what can you say? Looking at my Twitter feed, Paula says, "I got the IRS scam as well." Neen says, "I got an IRS call. I spoke to someone and told him I thought it was a scam." He got irate. Here's another one. Melissa says, "I've been getting scammed with voicemail saying several warrants out for you, you know, etc." This is just another person, Sandy says, "Just wanted to mention to not answer and definitely not call back that IRS scam number as they will keep calling then." And Japan says, "The Mirror is one of the few left-wing national dailies. That was where the story was about the scams, just FYI. Rocco Rizzo says, "Here's a scam for you. A person from Microsoft support called me today and told me there was a virus on my computer that's coming from the internet. I asked what the IP address was. He said it was 372.185, which, of course, if you know what an IP address is, that's not the way that they're presented in. It's the wrong number of digits." He says, "I laughed, told him he was a fraud, and hung up." Then another person says they got something like this on Facebook Messenger. And then CM Morgan says the IRS lady has been calling us too yesterday. I guess they're still around. So very strange stuff. Anyhow, it's Anything Goes Friday. So picking up your calls, RJ in San Jose, California. Hey, RJ, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking the call. Just really quick, I got the IRS scam, and I have a law office, so I kept calling them back and asking them for their names and addresses and phone numbers and information. So they stopped calling me after that.
Oh, that's interesting.
The second thing is, Yeah, it's just you just take them at their word and say, "Oh yeah, please give me your, who am I speaking with, and please give me your phone number and address and information."
Right.
They'll stop calling right away, especially if tell them you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
But I have a lagniappe for you since it's Anything Goes Friday. I was watching a Facebook blog, or I guess a conversation going on with a lot smarter people than me, and they were talking about what the president's power is to do prospective pardons.
Right.
And they mentioned Andrew Johnson, and obviously the Ford Nixon pardon.
Right.
And then they said Jimmy Carter pardoned all the draft dodgers, and I
Yep.
went, oh wow! So I went to look at the executive order, and it basically said all nonviolent violators of the Selective Service Act are pardoned, between these years. And I'm thinking, providing false material information to the Selective Service is a violation of the Selective Service Act. So I figured Don Trump has done 5 deferments. I'm betting he provided materially false information for at least one of those, which means he's the recipient of a presidential pardon already.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I mean, he presented an X-ray showing that he had bone spurs. Obviously, it was not an X-ray of him. He's still walking around just fine. So if that's the case, then Donald Trump committed a crime back in the 60s and 70s, and Jimmy Carter pardoned him. Wow, he's already been pardoned. I had no idea. I mean, I remember the Carter pardon, but I didn't realize that that's how it was phrased. That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
It's a little, it means nothing. It doesn't give anybody any leverage. But I thought, wow, that's just kind of a little nerdgasm fascinating thing that Trump, he's been the recipient of so much benefit. When you're talking about a scam artist, I think that but for Fred Trump's fortune, Donald would have been one of those guys with a card table, selling knockoff Fendi bags on Houston Street to the bridge and tunnel crowd.
I agree. I absolutely agree. He is a grifter, and he's raised his kids to be grifters, and he locks up. He gets into bed with he binds himself to grifters like Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen. I mean, it's just
one last thing, Tom, on hacking. One of the things that I've been sort of paying attention to now that I think might require some legislation is hacking of credit card numbers. My wife and I have now, in the last 5 years, probably had to change our credit card numbers like 4 or 5 times, almost once a year, because what happens is, some hacker will hack your credit card number from a website, and then the credit card companies won't do anything about it. They just say, well, change your credit card number, which means you have to, change.
I've had to do the same thing. About every year and a half, I've got 3 different credit cards, one for business, one for one business I own, one for another business I own, and one for Louise and me. And I've had to change all 3 of them on average about once a year because, and I'm assuming it's people hacking websites where they're not only getting the username and password, they're also getting the credit card information.
Yeah. The thing is, the companies don't do a whole lot to try to ensure that safety. They just say, well, any vendor can, use our credit card accounts or our credit.
Well, they're getting pretty good about. I've seen. Well, I bought something from overseas last 5-6 months ago. It was an old antique used book, and immediately I got a thing on my phone from my credit card company saying, this amount was just has not yet been authorized. Shall we authorize it? Is this actually you? And it was, because it was a charge in a foreign country, and they obviously knew I was here because I bought something earlier in the day here. So I said yes, and boom, it went right through. But if I'd said no, it would have connected me to the fraud prevention services for so-and-so bank, But yeah, it's good stuff. RJ, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Thanks for sharing your stories. They're great. Let's see here. Francis in Pasadena. Hey, Francis, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I have to thank you for turning me on to Murdoch Mysteries.
Oh yeah, isn't that a great TV show? The one that it's been a while since we talked TV shows on Anything Goes Friday, but after we ran out of Murdoch Mysteries, somebody called when I was talking about that a few weeks back and said you got to check out Person of Interest. And Louise and I are we're halfway through the last year, the 5th year. We've been binge watching Person of Interest ever since, which is just an amazingly good show, and obviously written by liberals. So
and in addition to Murdoch, there's Father Brown.
Yep. Which Louise and I have watched all of them.
Have you ever seen Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries?
No. Is that more Agatha Christie type?
It's, down here in the Los Angeles area, we have Channel 20 at KCET, and they run Father Brown and Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries on Sunday nights. Oh. And
It's a BBC
Isn't
show.
it ironic? Murdoch Mysteries is Canadian.
Oh, it's Canadian.
Father Brown
That's right.
is British.
Right.
And Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries is Australian.
Oh, fascinating.
The other one that keeps me alive on the weekend, just one more thing, Columbo reruns.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when Louise and I were both going through surgery back 6 years ago, I guess, and laying in bed, recovering, we watched all the Columbos and all the Macmillan and Wives. Flashback to our childhood.
What a treat.
Right.
What a treat. But before I go, there is an email at the IRS. There's 2 emails at the IRS where you can turn in phone numbers and emails and all sorts of things of people trying to scam you.
Okay.
Just a basic scam email. The email you send to report somebody scamming you is phishing, that's PHISING, -report at US-CERT, that's CERT.gov.
Okay.
And
I saw that on one of the sites. Only there's an H in that. There's 2 H's in that phishing word, but yes.
PHISHING.
Right.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
For specifically for those IRS calls, as the man just said, don't call them back.
Yeah.
Don't get into it. Just turn their number into phishing at irs.gov. They're very aware of this scam and published. At USA.gov has a lot of good information, and around tax time they publish their how to avoid IRS scams and phone
there's
scams
a bunch of them.
and email scams, and gives you all these email addresses and websites and places where you can fill out reports.
Yeah.
And they may be behind the game, but this is going to stack up, and eventually they'll catch somebody. Yeah.
Well, and they did. Like I said, in the New York Times 2 days ago, I think maybe 3 days ago, there was a story about how a bunch of people in the United States have been they're facing serious felony charges for these IRS phone scams. So, hopefully that'll tamp it down. Although somebody on Twitter said that they got one of these calls yesterday. So, it's whack-a-mole. It's just whack-a-mole.
I'm getting them in Chinese now.
Oh, geez. Francis, I got to run. Thanks.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's Anything Goes Friday. And welcome back. Cliff in Canyon Country, California. Hey, Cliff, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind?
You're welcome. Good morning, Tom, and happy Friday.
Thank you. Back at you.
And I'm getting better, too.
Yeah, great.
I've got several of those FBI and IRS scam phone calls, but it's always on a recorded message, and I tell my wife, and she just says, it's a scam, hang up.
Yeah.
I've never talked to somebody in person, but it's been a while since I've gotten one. Anyways, I'm calling about homelessness and Nikki Haley. Was it a week or two ago? She commented on a report from the UN on extreme poverty and human rights. That Philip Alston, he had a devastating critique of the pro-rich, anti-poor policies of the U.S.
Right.
And her view was that it's patently ridiculous for the UN to examine poverty in America.
Right.
She was suggesting they should just focus on like Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo. But
I read the report at the time. But we have infant mortality rates here in the United States that are below that of any other OECD country. We're hitting third world. If you look at individual states or parts of states, like parts of Louisiana have childhood poverty rates as high as some of your middle-level African countries, which are in the middle of civil wars and things,
Well, Bernie chimed in. He said he agreed that those African countries face far more problems, but he also pointed out that America's poverty is taking place in the richest country in the history of the world at a time when wealth and income inequality is worse than any time since the 20s.
Yeah.
And so the administration's response is to quit the UN Human Rights Council.
Yeah.
Also because of the perceived anti-Israel bias, but it's partly because of this.
Yep.
But I think Nikki Haley needs to climb down from her perch and come on out to my neighborhood, man. Come out to L.A. My Union Hall is right like a few blocks from Skid Row. I don't go down there anymore because I'm retired from the Union, but there's blocks and blocks and blocks of tent cities. Hundreds, thousands of homeless people right on the street. Everybody can just drive by. It's just a way of life down there.
But this is not the world that Republicans like Nikki Haley will ever comfortably visit.
Of course. Why would she?
Right.
And
they've got a story they tell themselves that allows them to live with this. Some people just don't have enough initiative, or they may be wounded or damaged, or they were born bad, or there's just some people who don't really deserve to be part of the American dream. And
what is it? A quarter of them are homeless vets. The vets that go out to protect our country and they come home and can't adjust to society or whatever, have a substance abuse problem, whatever the reasons. But there's a vast majority of people that are homeless that were out there defending our country, recently. And it's just such a tragedy.
Yeah, it really is, and it's spreading. I mean, it's startling to me here in Portland. I lived here for 5 years, 10 years ago, right? I mean, we lived in Portland for 5 years. We lived in D.C. for 7 years, and now we're back in Portland a year and a half. And from when we first moved to Portland, when you almost never saw homeless people. There were a few places where homeless people would camp out, but not so many. It was starting. To now, it's like they're along the freeways, they're at every interchange ramp, they're downtown, they're all over the city, and it's we shouldn't be having this kind of homelessness. We should. Cuba outlawed homelessness. They said, if you're homeless, we're going to take care of you. We're not going to put you in jail. We're going to take care of you. And I don't know why we can't. We're supposed to be so rich. Cliff, thanks for the call. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and it's Anything Goes Friday. Darren in Everett, Washington, watching us on Facebook Live. Hey, Darren, what's up?
Hey, I want to talk about a war on injured workers and how it's adding to homelessness and inequality here in America. That back in 2015, OSHA and Senator Sanders and NPR all told us, and the U.S. Department of Labor with Tom Perez all come out and told us we need some minimum federal standards over these broken state work comp systems. Yet 3 years later, the left is silent, and I'm begging for help here as an injured worker in the state of Washington who has been abused and harmed. Yet I have our revolution not wanting to put this issue and Senator Sanders' solutions on the table. And I would like to know why the left basically is failing us at this time.
I don't know the answer to your question, Darren, and I'm sorry to hear about your circumstances. I hope you get through it. I'm sorry, I don't know. Paul in Sparta, Wisconsin. Hey, Paul, what's on your mind today?
Thanks for taking my call. I used to work at the local Walmart here in town, and the other night, one of the other nights when I was going around doing my garbage detail, I noticed that there was a whole bunch of boxes coming into Walmart. Well, in those boxes are guns. Walmart has decided to sell guns again. And when I asked the local manager about it, and I said, why are we selling guns? Doesn't anybody remember Columbine? She gave me a dirty look and just turned around and said, it's corporate. We can't do nothing about it.
Wow. So Dick's is pretty much the only place to stop selling guns right now? Dick's Sporting Goods?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing. Okay, Paul, thanks a lot for the call.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bit of news I wasn't happy to hear, but, hey, that's life. Remarkable. Sheila in Talent, Oregon. Hey, Sheila, what's on your mind? Sheila, you are on the air. Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis. I clicked the wrong button. Dennis in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're on the air, Dennis.
Yeah, hello, Tom.
Hey, Dennis.
Hey, I got something that might be a little off the beaten path of what you've been talking about, but it's very interesting.
Okay. It's Anything Goes Friday. Go for it.
Yeah, well, this is about big oil, and about Iranian supply of big oil to Exxon.
Mm-hmm.
What had happened many years ago, I used to work in New York Harbor. I'm living out west now.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, when the sanctions were put on Iran during the hostage crisis in the late 70s, early 80s,
right,
Exxon had funded a storage facility and pipelines in Alexandria, Egypt. And there were oil tankers running back and forth from Iran to Alexandria, pumping off their cargo, their crude oil. And Exxon was chartering ships, mostly Greek ships, because they're the biggest ones out there. And
so you're saying they were busting the embargo. What about right now?
That I couldn't tell you, but I wanted to call you because it's concerning me, because we're about to put more sanctions on Iran.
Right.
With
Here's the thing,
oil.
Fareed Zakaria, I get his email every day, his daily column, and in yesterday's he was talking about how Russia and China are backstopping Iran right now. And of course, Russia and China were two of the countries, along with the UK, France, Germany, and the UN, who put together the Iran deal with President Obama. And we've pulled out of that deal, but they haven't. And Russia and China, and we'll see what happens with the European Union. But Russia and China can trade with Iran and not really worry about U.S. sanctions so much. In fact, Russia's already, under a whole bunch of U.S. sanctions. So it's really, Trump's sanctions against Iran are probably not going to have the kind of impact that he wants them to have. But it's a fascinating issue. Sheila in Oregon, I'm sorry, Sheila, earlier yelling at you and you weren't even there. Thanks for calling. You're on the air.
Am I on?
You actually are, yeah, this time.
All right. I want so much is on my mind, but right now on the scams that are going on, my niece almost fell victim to one that's going on, maybe just down in this area, but it's about rentals. She was looking for a rental for her and her daughter. She's going through a real tough time.
Mm-hmm.
And she called. It seems to be happening on Craigslist more than anything else. And she called, looked at the house, and there was a for sale sign out. But she called on the number, and the guy said, "Ignore the for sale sign. I'm dissatisfied with the company. I'm not going to sell it anyway." Sounded very credible. She called me and said she just loved the place. She went to look at it. It was just perfect, small, a little garden area, everything for her and a girl. And it turned out, then she said, maybe I should check on it. And I said, well, what's the for sale sign? And she gave me the name of the company. I said, call the company, the real estate. Ask them how they want their signs to be brought in, if they're going to come pick them up, or if they'd like you to take them in. See what the response is. And she did, and they had said that the house was for sale, that it was not for rent, and who, what number, that sort of thing. They wanted information, and so she told them. And this guy, what he's been doing, or several of them, have been looking at houses that they know are for sale, and then they are saying they're for rent. They scam these people. They get them to send the first and last into a mailbox, a post office box, and they're targeting they're targeting people who are in desperate situations, and that is just what enrages me.
Yes,
I would just.
Well, this is very often the case, and people in desperate situations are more vulnerable to be scammed because they're desperate.
Oh my, yeah. She just saw this and she just fell in love with it, and her heart was broken. And now and then she found another one. She looked at that same guy. She recognized the voice right away.
Wow.
She called the police, and they say there's nothing much they can do. Most of these people, you're sending the money to accounts with bogus names, and some of it isn't even, the caller isn't even in this country.
Right, and the mailbox lasts for a day or something like that. Yeah, it's bizarre. Sheila, this whole thing is like, I got a haircut last night, or yesterday afternoon, and my barber, and I said, you want to see something funny? And I handed him my phone with that email that I read at the beginning of the show, where the guy says, you've been on a porn site, and we have video. And I said, read this, and he read it, and he's like, whoa. And he says, this is pretty grim. And I said, it's a scam. And he read it again. He was like, oh, now it makes sense. And he said that he had a bookkeeper. He had a bookkeeper in his beauty company, his hair whatever company,
a couple of years ago, and he said she's one of these kind of people who gossips constantly, about everybody, and is always trying to tear everybody down, and it was very troubling to him. So anyhow, she answered the phone one day when he was not there, and it was an IRS scam against him, saying that he owed like $30,000 in money, and they were going to haul him off to jail the next day if he didn't call them right back at this number, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And so she told everybody in the company that the boss was in debt to the IRS and was apparently a deadbeat and blah-de-blah-de-blah, and it was a scammer. And when he came back, people came to him and said, she said some pretty nasty things about you in the past, but here's what it is now. And he said that was the end of her employment as his bookkeeper. But it was also, his first exposure to these IRS scams. So apparently it's like they're ubiquitous. I mean, I'm getting a haircut and the guy's telling me about this going on. Anyhow, Sheila, I got to run. That music means that it's the end of the hour. Thanks a lot for the call. And we'll continue with Anything Goes Friday. What a remarkable week. What an amazing time we live in, right? We're all getting scammed by these hustlers. And then we got one of these guys in the White House doing the same thing.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beats. More information is available over at thomsbeats.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code Tom. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com. Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Ralph Nader's most recent book, Breaking Through Power. It's Easier Than We Think. This is from the first chapter. It's titled Plutocracy of Maximums, Democracy of Minimums. When I was a student at Princeton University, I learned from my anthropology studies the concentration of power in the hands of a few is common to all cultures, societies, nations, tribes, cities, towns, and villages. Even where the thirst for self-governance and democracy is strong, as was the case in New England towns before the American Revolution against King George III, wealthy Tories were there too. In central and western Massachusetts, the farmers used the term the river gods to describe the rich merchants using the Connecticut River as a possible profitable trading route. These days, most people protesting for economic justice use the term the 1% to describe the ultra-small group of people who wield enormous influence over our society today. There is something about the differences in skill, determination, lineage, avarice, and pure luck that stratifies most people from the rulers who dominate them. In the political realm, the few become dominant because they hoard wealth and are driven to exercise power over others. When a small group rules a society, the political system is considered an oligarchy. And when only money and wealth
determine how a society is controlled. The political system is a plutocracy. From the standpoint of a democratic society, both oligarchy and plutocracy are inherently unjust and corrupt. Of course, there are variations in the degrees of authoritarianism and cruelty that each system exercises over the communities it relies on for workers and wealth. Scholars have resorted to using phrases like benign dictatorship or wise rules or paternalistic hierarchies to describe lighter touches by those few who impose their rule over the many. Thomas Paine simply called them tyrannies. People, families, and communities can only take so much abuse before they rise up to resist. The job of the rulers is always to find that line and provide the lowest level of pay, security, housing, consumer protection, healthcare, and political access for society so that they can extract and hoard the greatest amount of wealth, power, and immunity from justice for themselves. In many ways, the majority of Americans live in a democracy of minimums, while the privileged few enjoy a plutocracy of maximums. This small volume is not just about the ravages of power or the assaults against disadvantaged and downtrodden communities. The subject here is the dominating influence of the 1% in business, politics, health, education, and society as a whole. Over the past 50 years, Americans have suffered the relentless commercialization of everyday life, their privacy and their childhoods, their parks and prisons, their public budgets and foreign policy, their schools and religious institutions, their elections and governments, and the most basic societal institutions of them all, the family. Consider all the family functions that have been outsourced to business: eating, cleaning, childcare, counseling, therapy, entertainment, sports, lawn work, simple repairs have been increasingly commercialized, commodified, packaged, and marketed back to us as products of luxury and convenience. Even mother's breast milk has been displaced by infant formula. In a plutocracy, commercialism dominates far beyond the realm of economics and business. Everything is for sale, and money is power. But in an authentic democracy, there must be commercial-free zones where the power of human rights, citizenship, community, equality, and justice are free from the corrupting influence of money. Our elections and our governments should be such commercial-free zones. Our environment, air, and water should never fall under the control of corporations or private owners. Children should not be programmed by a huckstering economy where their vulnerable consciousness becomes the target of relentless corporate marketing and advertising. American history demonstrates that whenever commerce dominates all aspects of national life, a host of ills and atrocities have not just festered and spread, but become normal. Enslavement, land grabs, war, ethnic cleansing, serfdom, child labor, abusive working conditions, corrupt political systems, environmental contamination, and immunity from the law for the privileged few. History also shows that whenever there have been periods when enough of the country organizes and resists, we see movements of people and communities breaking through power. Progress is made, rights are won, education and literacy increase, oppression is diminished. It was in this manner that people of conscience abolished the living nightmare imposed by the laws and whips of white enslavers. The nation moved closer to promises of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness expressed in the Declaration of Independence. We won more control over our work, our food, our land, our air, and our water. Women secured the right to vote. Civil rights were elevated and enforced. Public schools, improved environments, workplace collective bargaining, and consumer protections did not spontaneously evolve. They were won by people demanding them and breaking through power. These moments of great progress are expressed in terms of new legislation, regulations, and judicial decisions that directly benefit life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The book, Breaking Through Power, by Ralph Nader. Breaking through power, it's easier than we think. Full thing, something as
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to Anything Goes Friday. Lee over on Facebook, I guess this is, Facebook comment,
He says, Verizon will add the word spam with a question mark to your phone caller ID to try to announce reported scammers. But he notes political opponents may be reporting valid calling numbers that causes the spam to be attributed to campaign numbers. That's interesting. Louise, I was just talking with Louise, and she said just this morning she got 2 calls that were both labeled spam, and of course she didn't answer them. And you wonder, was it really a spammer or was it a politician calling? And if so, what side? I created a Google search. You can create a thing where Google every day will say, search on certain terms, and this was on global warming. And I created one on global warming. And every day I'd get a thing from Google with, 6, 8, 10 articles, the top 6, 8, 10 articles on global warming that Google had found in the news. And typically they were in like major, New York Times, Financial Times, scientific journals, things like that. And I've noticed over the year or so that I've just been getting this one daily report from Google that, well, first of all, I noticed that early on that they would occasionally throw in sites like the Heartland Institute, which is like, saying that there's no such thing as global warming. And there's a little button you can click that says report this link as irrelevant, right? Or as inappropriate. So I would click that link and that story would vanish, whenever it was the Heartland Institute. But I've noticed over the last 6 months or so that almost all of the mainstream media reports have vanished from that particular Google search. And I'm wondering if these big companies that pay millions of dollars to front groups to scam this kind of stuff, if they're reporting actual news agencies reporting actual news about global climate change as spam, and thus causing it not to show up on Google searches. I'm certainly seeing what looks like that. And then, of course, if they were to know that a particular political campaign was calling from a particular number, and they were to start reporting that number to Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and whatever as scam calls or as spammer numbers, then, and I'm not sure what the process is for that, but then, that could lead to that. So anyway, it's all kind of strange stuff. Mark in West Hollywood, California. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today?
Well, 2 things, Tom. I got the same email you did with an old password, and they wanted $2,900 via Bitcoin. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, because that's something that is definitely unnerving to get.
Yeah, it is. And I think, most men at some point have visited a porn site, and just the whole idea is like they're really making some bad pictures in your head with that language.
Absolutely. And then finally, everything Donald Trump says makes sense if you preface it with, Donald from Queens, you're on the air.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I suppose. Or Donald from Don, I was thinking mafia families. How do you say that, I guess?
Yeah, right,
the Don,
right,
you're
the
on
Don.
the air. Yeah, there you go.
All right,
okay, thanks a lot,
thank you,
Mark.
Tom.
Yep. And in fact, my barber, yesterday I was telling you about my barber and telling him about this scam, and he said, last week I Googled Stormy Daniels and I ended up on Pornhub. And he said, so this could have been me. And I said, no, it has nothing to do with whether you visit a porn site. It has to do with whether they have any of your passwords, and of course those passwords and emails are floating all over the place in the dark web. Sibylla in Greer, South Carolina. Hey, Sibylla, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I was calling about the time when Don Sr. was in the plane and instructing his son, Don Jr., how to change a letter or something about the Magnitsky Act.
Yes, how to lie to the American people about the meeting that they had with the Russians, that it was about adoptions, which was
right. And I thought, but I have a traumatic brain injury. I thought there was an attorney on the plane that when he left that plane, he applied to get to leave. Do you remember that?
I have a vague recollection of something like that.
I do too, but I can't remember his name. I don't know. If
I can't either, and I don't have traumatic brain injury. I think maybe you're more normal than you think, Sibylla.
You've got that memory,
Yeah. I have a vague recollection of that, and maybe somebody will call in who knows the details, or if not, it's the sort of thing that I'll have to search when I get off the line.
Because I could have sworn someone did that, and I thought, well, maybe they're already in line to talk to one of the places that are dealing with either all these different parts of Don Sr.
Yeah, I just don't know, but it's certainly worth looking up. Sibylla, thank you for the call. It's great to talk to you. Troy in Charlottesville, Virginia, listening on WPVC. Hey, Troy, what's on your mind?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm fine,
thank you. A couple of your books years back, Prophet's Way and the Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I found them very inspiring, really good.
Well, thank you. Last Hours, by the way, I rewrote it for the 21st century because it was originally written in '96, then we updated it in 2001 or 2, and we just re-updated it again with all up-to-date climate information and peak oil information and everything else. And Random House is sitting on it, trying to decide when to release it. So I'm hopeful that happens soon because I think it's a really good update to that book. But back to you, Troy.
Yeah, it's a great book. I was reading Conversations with God, and it recommended your book, so then I read it. And anyway,
I got to tell you a funny story, Troy. When Neil Donald Walsch asked God, and this is in book 3 of Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsch, when Neil Donald Walsch asked God, what books should I read to learn about the environment? God recommended a couple of books, and one of them was Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. And so when I read this, and I heard about it from a friend, and then I picked up a copy of Conversations with God 3, and I was like, whoa, and I read it. And so we issued a press release saying, God promotes a book for the second time in 2,000 years. Back 2,000 years ago, God promoted the Old Testament in the New Testament, and now God is promoting the Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. So it was good for a smile. But back to you, Troy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That was all those connected for me. So the question I have is, in your books, you describe meeting with and talking to, communicating with angels.
Or my sense of same. Yeah, I don't think I ever described actually. Well, the Gottfried Mueller and I were. I'm thinking you're thinking about the time that we met with Andrew Young's wife, and I'm forgetting her first name, which is really a shame because she was just an extraordinary person. And she was the head of the International Year of the Child at the United Nations. And my mentor, Gottfried Mueller, and I were meeting with her in her office, and she stepped out for a minute, and Herr Mueller turned to me and he said, "Did you see the angels?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "There are angels in this room. This woman is a holy woman. She's and I didn't see it, but he did."
Okay.
And that's what I say in the book. So if that's what you're talking about, yeah.
Okay, that's exactly what I remember reading about him and you being his friend, and he saw them.
Yeah, he was an amazing guy. He really was an amazing guy, and that's all in that book, The Prophet's Way. He was, one of my very, very best teachers in my whole entire life about spirituality, about life, about culture, about all kinds of stuff. It was just an extraordinary time, and that book is about as close to an autobiography as I have out there. Troy, thank you for the call. I got to run here. We're hitting a break, but thank you for the call, and thanks for reading my books. It's much appreciated. It's coming up on 15 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann Program. TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, all that cool stuff. Jubah Mubarak. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Oh, and have you noticed Michael Avenatti is now representing 4 women who say Donald Trump paid them off to keep silent? How many more are there? And welcome back. Oh, let's see here what we have by way of calls. Ron, watching us on YouTube in Largo, Florida. Hey, Ron, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I got a call yesterday from somebody who said they were from Social Security. It definitely sounded like an accent. And that there was fraud on my account, that I should contact them as quick as possible. But it was like a 762 number from Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that I'd report that to Social Security.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I couldn't get through to Social Security. They actually said to call back next week, and I tried to call their fraud line. So they're definitely understaffed. They're real busy.
Well, this is the problem. The Republicans cut several $100 million out of their budget.
To get a hold of Social Security is a 1-800 number. So I just figured it was a scam.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is a scam. And your problem, Ron, in reaching the Social Security office is the result of the Republican tax scam cutting several $100 million out of the Social Security and Medicare budgets. So they've had to lay off large chunks, hundreds or maybe thousands of people who answer the phone and help people. And as a consequence of that, when you call Social Security, you plan to be on hold for a long time. You can thank your Republican members of Congress for that. Just straight up, that's, the beginning and end of the whole thing. Bob in South Philadelphia. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech.
Hey, Tom. Thanks. You mentioned a few times on the air when the DNC kicked out the unions, they used to have a vote. And I think it was 74, I can't remember. And I was trying to see, how can I Google that?
I'm sorry, start that again, Bob.
So, the DNC, the unions used to have a vote, and you mentioned where they kicked them out. They said no more vote for you. It was around 72.
I don't know. I'm sorry. You're saying that the unions had a say in how the DNC was selecting candidates and things, or? Yeah, I mean, the unions have always been big players in the Democratic Party, and there were a lot of reforms in the Democratic Party after the Watergate scandals, and then there was another set of reforms that happened. Some would argue they were good, and some would argue they were bad. That happened after the end of the Carter presidency, and then there was another set of reforms that happened in the late or the early '90s, the late '80s, early '90s, to deal with the quote disaster of the overwhelming victory of Reagan's reelection. And I don't recall the details of what the unions did and can't do anymore, Bob. If that's your question, I'm not sure exactly what the answer to that would be. Am I correctly understanding your question?
I heard you mention it a few times on the air, and
yeah.
I guess I'll just have to try to find and Google it.
Yeah, I think I might have been mentioning A, and you thought I was talking about B, because I don't have any recollection of direct knowledge of exactly how unions could influence the Democratic Party, other than that the unions historically were one of the major financiers of the Democratic Party nationally. And that's why Reagan explicitly went after the unions, was to defund the Democratic Party. That's also why these campaigns in various states, Texas was the first to do what's called tort reform. In other words, ratchet down to $250,000, the maximum you could sue for, because trial lawyers were big funders of the Democratic Party. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beets. More information is available over at thomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code Tom. The new X Chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X Chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Chaz in Lakewood, Washington. Hey, Chaz, what's on your mind?
Comrade, is another glorious day in Trumpistan, is it not?
There you go, Chaz. Definitely is.
Hey, since it's Anything Goes Friday and Anything Goes Summer, first, can I ask, how is Blue settling in?
Blue is doing well. We had to get a support dog for Blue. And I'm not kidding. Blue is an Australian Shepherd, and he just constantly has to monitor everything. He's always trying to protect the flock, and he was just getting so neurotic about if Louise or I would leave or whatever. And so we got a little more of a mutt dog. She's part poodle and part Aussie and whatnot. And she's become his support dog. And so when we go out of town and they go off to doggy daycare, she goes with him and she keeps him calm. And around the house, she keeps him calm. And it's working out quite well, actually.
All right. Listen, we need to start talking about solutions for the scammers. Without a doubt, the first most important thing I'd tell people is if somebody from the IRS, FBI, utility company is the newest scam, and they're telling you go buy a green dot gift card, it's patent right off the bat that that's a scam. Or they'll call you up, and on the caller ID, it will say police for some reason on the caller ID. And they're saying, well, we're the FBI, and if you don't do what we say, we will call the police. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Now, also, I told the screener, I tweeted you that there's a service. I'm not chilling it, but I think it's interesting for about $1 a month called Jolly Roger Telephone. You familiar at all with it?
I'm not.
Do you want me to elaborate a little bit on it?
Sure. Jolly Roger pirate, I'm assuming.
No, well, yeah, in a sense, yeah, getting your phone pirated. But Jolly Roger, it's a website. It looks like it's got a lot of good credentials across the bottom. And for like $1 a month, it screens all your incoming calls and says, hey, if you're a real person, just press 1 and you'll get right through. But if you're a scammer, go ahead and drop our name off the list. I won't pick up any call I don't recognize because there are folks that are harvesting live voices and then turning around and selling those phone numbers.
That's right. That's right. I also have reached that point, and I discovered on the iPhone about 6 months ago or a year ago that I could block calls. In fact, it's quite easy once you know how to do it. And so there were, and the main spoof was, the first 3 digits of my phone number. Let's say they were, 123. Not the area code, but the first 3 digits of the number. So it'd be 503 123 1234. They were calling from numbers that were 503 123. But with the last 4 digits being different than mine. And after answering one of those, I immediately figured out because they can spoof any number or any caller ID they want. There's programs to do that. And so I started just ignoring those calls or letting them roll into voicemail. And they were always sales calls or, we're the IRS. And so I started blocking them. And then you can go in on your iPhone and you can look at the voicemail left by your blocked numbers. And I've got like 40 or 50 voicemails in there in the blocked numbers. And it's bizarre, but I don't hear from them anymore. And I absolutely will not answer the phone if caller ID doesn't show somebody who I know.
I'm surprised that there's not apps available, free and premium, that will do what Jolly Roger does, because one of the services they offer is that they will put on a recording that has all the conversational regularities so that a scammer thinks that they're talking to a live person, and you get the ums and the ats and the hold on and darn, the dog knocked something over, or kid's coming in the door, hold on 1 second, and could you start over please, and so on. It borders on hilarious when you hear some of the recordings.
Well, my only concern would be, in order for that to work, I would have to give them my phone number, and then they would basically set up their computer so that all of my phone calls first go to them and then are routed through them back to me. And that's giving them tremendous power in the context of, information is power. They would know who all my calls are. They would know who are in my address book. I would be very wary about handing that kind of information off to anybody, even for $1 a month. In fact, $1.
I understand entirely. I think it's just the phone number, but I'm still looking into it myself as well. And solutions, man. I mean, when I go to my congressman's office, everybody complains about guns and immigration. Like, you know what, you guys got that covered. That's nice. I just want to stop all the spam and all of the phishing that's coming to my house. We got to do something about it. It's out of control.
Oh yeah, the con artists, and maybe it's exploding right now because we've got a flim-flam man, you know, a grifter in the White House, and I'm not joking. I mean, you know, it's just it's becoming, I think, very obvious to the American people and even to the people who voted for Trump that the guy's a grifter, that he, you know, he lies every day. And he's continuing to engage in behavior that is unconstitutional and perhaps will be found illegal, just to continue, you know, inflating his own pocketbook. It's just, and so we're seeing this explosion of scammers and hustlers, maybe because they're going, hey, you know, the president is one of us, you know, and it's getting harder and harder and harder for law enforcement to keep up with these people. I mean, it's a real challenge.
I forgot that I used to refer to him as the Don until you brought it up, and now I just call him Benedict Donald.
Yeah, that works. I like President Spanky, but there's all kinds of titles. Chaz, thanks a lot for the call. I wonder if any of the other women Michael Avenatti is representing also had Donald Trump drop his pants and asked to be spanked with a rolled-up copy of Forbes with a picture of him and his daughter on the cover. I don't know. It's kind of a weird picture to have in your head, though. We'll be back. It's 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Taking back the mainstream media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. Anything Goes Friday. Back with your calls right after this. Welcome to the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from Crisis Without End. This is a collection of essays about nuclear power compiled by Helen Caldicott and edited by Helen Caldicott. I'm reading from the introduction which she wrote. She is the world-famous Australian pediatrician, physician who has been speaking out about nuclear power and whatnot for years and years. On March 11, 2011, an earthquake measuring 9 on the Richter scale struck off the east coast of Japan. Within days, the ensuing tsunami had induced the meltdown of 3 of the 6 nuclear reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. During the earthquake, the external power supply was lost to the reactor complex. The pumps that circulate up to 1 million gallons of water per minute to cool each reactor core ceased to function. Emergency diesel generators situated below the plants kicked in, but these were soon swamped by the tsunami. Without cooling, the radioactive cores in units 1, 2, and 3 began to melt within hours. Over the next few days, all 3 cores, each weighing up to 100 tons, melted their way through 6 inches of steel at the bottom of their reactor vessels and oozed their way onto the concrete floor of the containment buildings, a fact that the Japanese government and Tokyo Electric Power Company, TEPCO, the power plant operator, continued to deny for months after the disaster. At the same time, the zirconium cladding covering thousands of uranium fuel rods reacted with water to create hydrogen, which initiated hydrogen explosions in units 1, 2, 3, and 4. Massive quantities of radiation escaped into the air and water, 3 times more noble gases, argon, xenon, and krypton, than at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident in 1986, and huge amounts of other volatile and non-volatile radioactive elements, including cesium, tritium, iodine, strontium, silver, plutonium, americium, and rubidium. Fukushima is now described as the greatest industrial accident in history. The Japanese government considered plans to evacuate 35 million people from Tokyo as other reactors, including 4 at Fukushima Daini, several miles along the coast from Fukushima Daiichi, were also at risk. Meanwhile, thousands of people fled the area around the smoldering reactors, but they were not notified when the radioactive plumes were traveling, despite the fact that there was a system in place to track the plumes. As a result, people fled directly into regions with the highest radiation concentrations, where they were exposed to high levels of whole-body external gamma radiation, inhaling radioactive air, and swallowing radioactive elements. Administering inert potassium iodide to the exposed people would have blocked the uptake of radioactive iodine in the thyroid glands. Unfortunately, it was not supplied except in the town of Miharu, where there was a conscientious mayor. Prophylactic iodine was, however, distributed to the staff of Fukushima Medical University in the days following the accident after extremely high levels of radioactive iodine, 1.9 million becquerels per kilogram, were discovered in leafy vegetables near the university. Iodine contamination was already widespread in leafy vegetables and milk, while other isotopic contamination from substances such as cesium was widespread in vegetables, fruit, meat, milk, rice, and tea in many areas of Japan. Fukushima disaster is not over and will not end for many millennia. The radioactive fallout, which has covered vast swaths of Japan, will remain toxic for hundreds of thousands of years. It cannot simply be cleaned up, and it will continue to contaminate food, humans, and animals. It is unlikely that the 3 Fukushima Daiichi reactors that experienced total meltdowns will ever be deassembled or decommissioned. TEPCO claims such a massive undertaking will take them at least 30 to 40 years. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, predicts that it will be more than 40 years before any progress can be made because of the dangerous levels of radioactivity at the damaged reactors. This accident is identical to the Chernobyl catastrophe in its medical implications. The Fukushima meltdowns will induce an epidemic of cancer as people ingest radioactive elements. The single meltdown and explosion at Chernobyl contaminated 40% of the European landmass. Already, according to a 2009 report published by the New York Academy of Sciences, over 1 million people have perished as a result directly of that catastrophe. Large parts of Europe will remain radioactive for hundreds of years, as will now be the case in Japan. In assessing the impact of the Fukushima disaster on Japan and on the planet, and in assessing the safety of nuclear power overall, it is imperative to understand and evaluate the biological and medical consequences of exposure to the kinds of radioactive elements that were released during an accident at a nuclear power plant. Fact 1, no dose of radiation is safe. Each dose received by the body is cumulative and adds to the risk of developing malignancy or genetic disease. Fact 2, children are 10 to 20 times more vulnerable to the carcinogenic effects of radiation than adults. Females tend to be more sensitive than males, while fetuses and immunocompromised patients are also extremely sensitive. Fact 3, high doses of radiation received from a nuclear meltdown or from weapons explosions can cause acute radiation sickness, including hair loss, severe nausea, diarrhea, and bleeding. Reports of these illnesses, particularly among children, appeared within the first few months after the Fukushima accident. And then it goes on, the types of ionizing radiation. Crisis Without End by Helen Keller.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday, and Carol in Chicago. Hey, Carol, thanks for listening to Chicago's Progressive Talk. What's up?
Hi, Tom. A couple of things. Mr. Trump, I don't know why I call him Mr., is always trolling people by the numbers. Mm-hmm. So I think that people should always remind him that he's number 45 and Obama was number 43. He followed him. I mean, he likes I'm the greatest. And then second, maybe they should remind him that Obama's first election, he got 69 million votes. Trump only got 63.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
I mean, these are real numbers. You can't be number 45 without there being a number 44. So
right.
I think it would be a fun way to troll him that he can't. I mean, what can you say to that?
I agree. And then on top of that, Trump comes out this morning and tries to gaslight us all by saying, hey, we hit 4.1% growth for the quarter for GDP. Well, Obama did that 4 times. Once was over 5% growth. And Trump is like, this is historic. Excuse me.
That's what made me think about it today when I heard the report, and they said, oh, he did this a couple of times. I said, yeah, but those are the numbers they can fudge with.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can't fudge with you number 45, and he was number 44.
There you go.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, Carol.
Goodbye.
You too. Thanks a lot. Great to hear from you. That was a great call. George in Chicago. Hey, George, what's up?
Well, when you played the tape of the IRS scam call, it was like deja vu all over again. last year, the year before, my mom was periodically getting the exact same call with the exact same voice.
Wow.
Same text.
Yeah.
And of course, she's in her 90s and hard of hearing, so the answering machine picked up and recorded this stuff.
Yeah, that's what happened here.
And it's like they just keep going back to the well again and again, using the same thing as long as it works.
Yeah, that's terrible. George, your phone is breaking up really badly. I'm sorry. I'm going to drop the call, and you can, if you were going to go from there to another topic you wanted to talk about, just call back, and Cheryl will put you back on the board. But that phone was breaking up so badly, I could, I was just on the edge of being able to understand what you were talking about. But I got it that your mother or grandmother was getting those calls. Alex in Brighton, Michigan. Hey, Alex, what's up?
Hi. I was listening, yesterday to your conversation about guns and 3D printing, and you and the caller seem to be missing that you can print metal at home now with 3D printing.
But it's not a hard enough metal that it would be able to hold the thousands of feet per second pressure that the explosion of a bullet produces. Right,
but eventually I think that'll be scaled down to even people. So I just wanted to throw the my sense in there.
Yeah, it may be. I doubt they'll be able to print steel, but who knows? I mean, the technology is really moving fast. Excellent point, though, Alex. Thanks a lot for the call. Lowell in Salem, Oregon. Hey, whoops, hang on just a second, Lowell. I hit the wrong button. There we go. Lowell in Salem, Oregon. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Tom. I have a few local candidates to announce on the radio, so I was hoping I could announce them here.
Go for it.
First, we've got Shelaswa Crier, Shelaswau Crier, Crier, and it's Vote Crier for MarionCounty.org.
Okay.
And she's running for County Commissioner number 1. And then we have Bill Burgess. He's running for County Commissioner number 2, and it's electbillburgess.com. And then we have Mike Ellison. He's running for House District 19, which is MikeEllisonForOregon.com. And then we have Deb Patterson. She's running for Oregon Senate District 10, and that's DebPattersonOR.org. And then we have Dave McCall, who's running for Oregon House District 25, and it's friendsofdavemccall.com.
Great. Okay, Lowell. I hope they all do well, and please keep us up to date on how the election cycle is moving. Great to hear from you. Thank you very kindly. Jose in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hey, Jose, what's up?
Yes, I wanted to speak on MS-13 and overblown drug problem. But first, I just want to say that, maybe one day we'll be the immigrants because of climate change or nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And, when we go to Argentina and Brazil, they're going to treat us like dirt because they're going to remember.
Yeah. But, well, right now, the North American continent, global warming is hitting the mid-latitudes really, really hard right now. And so it may not be more than a decade or two. It might even be a few years before large chunks of America start being uninhabitable. So it might happen faster than you think, Jose. Back to you.
Yeah. So a lot of people right now, they're fear-mongering about MS-13. Yet, you have The Godfather, was one of the greatest movies of all time, has a huge fan base. You got Sons of Anarchy. It had like 10 seasons or whatever. You got biker gangs stuffing for Trump. And just the hypocrisy of all that these people, they like those gangsters. And not to mention the gangsters we have on Wall Street that wear suits and rob us blind right in front of us.
Yeah, they just don't like gangsters who have any melanin in their skin, any coloring to their skin.
We could destroy the cartels if we just follow the Portugal model and just legalize all drugs.
I agree.
Because it's, whether we like it or not, it's not something to be proud of, but it is part of our culture. And, we're individuals, very individualistic. So we're not going to let the government stop us from doing, all these terrible drugs that I agree we shouldn't do. But, right. I've tried almost all of them, I'll admit.
Yeah,
and,
so have I. One of the things that we know is that in mammalian species, in mammals, a small percentage of every species And typically it's below 5%, but it depends on the drug. Because, for example, with tobacco, we had almost 50% of America addicted to tobacco right after World War II. So, for different drugs, you have different percentages. But typically with the severe intoxicants like alcohol, you'll see about 5% of an elephant population will chronically abuse alcohol, in the form of fermented fruit. Birds actually do this too. I mean, this is the desire to get high in a dysfunctional way is represented in a small percentage of our population, because the desire to get high occasionally, which would be arguably a functional way, is present in all of us. And so then the question is, okay, if we all want to modify our consciousness, little kids do it by spinning around in circles until they're dizzy, right? We all did that growing up. We all know about conscious modification. We do it every night when we go to sleep. So if you're going to allow the public to engage in consciousness modification, which I realize Mormons wouldn't be in favor of, but pretty much everybody else is, then the question is, what is the safest way to do that? And we chose alcohol and tobacco, which are the least safe. Alcohol kills 50,000 people a year in the United States directly, and tobacco kills 500,000 people a year in the United States directly. Yeah. And in the 243 years of this has been the United States of America, the number of people who've died from marijuana overdoses is zero. Zero.
Yeah.
Back to you, Jose.
Nobody who smoked a lot of marijuana has ever shot somebody,
Yeah. No, they're too busy looking for Twinkies.
That's the main cause. That's hey, I was drunk, so I forgot what I was doing. I blacked out and I shot my wife.
Yeah.
That's never happened as far as marijuana.
That's right. That's right, to the best of my knowledge, anyway. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah. I think that going the Portugal route is definitely the route to go. Jose, thanks for the call. Very, very well said. George in Chicago. George, you had called earlier, and I said your phone wasn't working. Call me back, right?
Right, and I'm on a landline now, so this
Great.
will be a little better.
Oh, it's dramatically better.
Two quick points, one on the scam and one on the Democratic Party. A very good friend of mine related that he got a call last week from this alleged Microsoft customer service saying that something in his software needed to be serviced, and he just laughed and told him, I don't even own a computer. And the guy swore at him and called him a blankety-blank caveman and hung up on him.
Yeah, this is the new scam. Is you'll get a call from somebody representing themselves as Microsoft, and there's variations on it. Either you need to give the credit card to update your Microsoft account, or you need to give us access to your computer and give us the information to do that, so that we can remote. And anybody who's interacted with Microsoft actual tech support, actually it's been probably a decade since I've interacted with Microsoft tech support, because I avoid Microsoft products by and large. But but when I did, I remember the guy took control of my computer through some sort of back door that they have in their operating system. And I don't think nowadays you'd want that to happen.
Absolutely. And your earlier caller was talking about how during the Democratic conventions prior to '72, the unions apparently had a set amount of influence or votes. I'm not familiar with it either.
Yeah.
But just to show how the influence of the unions has fallen with the Democratic Party, I received a fundraising missive from the DCCC some time ago, and there was, of course, a survey in it listing 12 or 13 very worthy issues to be ranked in order of importance. Mm-hmm. Not one of them had anything to do with unions, workers, or the workplace.
Oh.
So there was a blank space where you could check other, and I put in strengthen unions, work for workers' rights, pass the Freedom of Choice Act. And I thought to myself, the DCCC is not even advocating for stronger unions.
Yeah,
I sent the contribution anyway because our democracy is at stake this year.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you, George, for that. I appreciate the call, and thanks for listening to WCPT. Whew. We'll be back. We're going to check in about 4 minutes with Luke Vargas, who Talk Media News, to find out what's going on in the world today. And, of course, it's Anything Goes Friday.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Speaking the truth, the multinational corporations would really rather you didn't know all about. Thom Hartmann here with you, 45 and a half minutes past the hour.
welcome back. Corky in Rochester, New York, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Corky, what's up?
Yeah, hello, Tom. I watched Trump get up there today and lie through his buttocks.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was lying through his mouth. I saw it.
Well, that's the same thing.
Might be.
But
yeah.
I only went to college for one semester, and I took economics. And the little bit I learned was that when you want to boost the economy because it's slowing down, you add liquidity to the markets.
That's correct. And you do that by lowering interest rates, which increases the velocity of money, basically.
Yeah, and the 4-point-something growth, that was what was the result of putting all that money into the stock market.
Yep. Well, it was the tax. It was the tax cut. It was the tax cut in many different ways. It's goosing the market, of course, because that's how executives get compensated. And there's some spillover. People are spending the extra money. But I've been saying this for 15 years on this program. Whenever you have tax cuts on working class people, wages go down, and that's what's happened in the last years. Wages have measurably gone down. And whenever you have tax increases on working class people, wages go up. And we haven't had a tax increase on working class people since Reagan. So, wages have not gone up since Reagan.
No, wages aren't going up.
Right.
They haven't gone up in 35 years.
Yep, my point. You want to see them go up, raise taxes.
And the only thing that's going to change that is, like that gentleman said, was unionization.
Well, yeah, and because the unions will influence the taxation. But if you raise the taxes all across the spectrum, working people's pay would go up, but the billionaires' pay would not, which would make more money available because you'd be throwing them into higher tax brackets, which would make more money available to the federal government to provide services to working class people. So, things like Medicaid and good roads and good bridges and good schools. I saw an ad. There was an ad on TV last night on MSNBC or CNN, I forget which, but it was a local ad. It was an Oregon-sourced ad. And it said, half of our kids are going to school without the proper school supplies. And so this hairdressing salon here in town is like, with every haircut, we're going to contribute $1 to this fund for school, or some percentage or whatever, to this fund for school supplies for kids who can't afford school supplies. And I'm looking at this ad going, what are the priorities of our country? You've got trillions of dollars sloshing around in the $2 trillion that the Pentagon can't account for. You're spending billions of dollars a month in Afghanistan and Iraq, producing no measurable results, and our teachers don't have school supplies? To the point that the local beauty shop has to do a fundraiser for the damn schools? Really?
That's all for the military complex.
Yeah.
They don't need that money.
That's my point. I mean, it's Costa Rica said no, we don't even need a military. We're going to put all that money into free education and free health care, and they did. And they've got, you're not seeing Costa Rican refugees on the southern border of the United States at all. It's from the countries that went full hard right.
Buys one AR or one plane, we got to have 50.
Yeah, no, our military is powerful, as Donald Trump likes to point out, because it's bloated. Karki, thanks for the call. It's great to hear from you. We'll be back. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour, and Luke Vargas of Talk Media News will be up next. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code TOM. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Superbeats. More information is available over at tomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from the from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, T-H-O-M, xchairtom.com. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom.
Want to connect with the show online?
Welcome
you can
back.
find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook.
And just a tip of the hat to our newest advertiser, ChooseMuse.com, or an advertiser supporter, underwriter. It's the Muse EEG neurofeedback headband that I have found really has improved my meditation. Anyhow, let's check in with Luke Vargas with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, Ellen Ratner's new book. On the line with us, Luke Vargas, the chief correspondent, foreign correspondent for Talk Media News, based out of New York at the UN. You can follow Luke on Twitter at The Courier. Luke, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much.
So 55 American servicemen, have we verified that these are actually 55 Americans? Is that what took a couple days, or have we not?
I believe that process is nearing completion now, and we're pretty satisfied that this has been a bona fide gesture from the North Koreans. And I have to say, having done a few interviews this morning, including with folks over at 38 North, which is sort of a think tank within the Stimson Center there in D.C., where they focus a lot on analysis of North Korean foreign policy and nuclear weapons policy. The sentiment sort of seems to be that we should, as much as we should maybe challenge the president's assertions that Kim Jong-un has done something momentous here, that we should also not poo-poo recent progress here, because this is going, if we are indeed at the transom leading towards a long, road on denuclearization, you're going to have to start somewhere.
Sure.
And that this is, probably the third successive step now we've seen between these incremental denuclearization construction efforts at this Sonhai engine testing plant that we talked about earlier, and then before that, the sort of destruction of parts of that Mount Mantap nuclear testing facility, which was before the Singapore summit. But we are on a positive trajectory here. But what experts seem to be telling me, and what I've also been reading elsewhere, is that at a certain point, the U.S. is going to need to be the party here that makes things official, right? Mm-hmm. That you've got to see some sort of action from the U.S., either appointing a special representative to fully lead these talks. I mean, currently we're borrowing people from all sorts of other duties, using some of our ambassadors in the Pacific region to be handling sort of shuttle diplomacy with the North Koreans. Better to get President Trump to appoint someone here and be working on this full time. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has other things on his plate, rightfully so. And also that it would be helpful if the U.S. started talking in sort of positive terms about the ways in which North Korea's nuclear and missile facilities could be modified as opposed to just being destroyed. I think there will be further steps that North Koreans will take unilaterally to blow up or have some sort of big press avails where they, demolish a facility in front of international cameras. But much like how the Iran deal, most people sort of applauded it for saying, hey, you spent millions, if not billions, on some of these nuclear facilities. Let's find a way to work with you to convert them into things that are strictly for nuclear energy. Now, again, that might be a premise that's anathema to this White House, but it's unlikely to see a more hardline demand that those facilities just be abandoned or demolished, actually succeeding. So we've got to offer a concrete roadmap for how do you take Yongbyon, which is the big fissile material production area, how do you make that an industrial park or something like that? I think those are the concrete steps that experts now want to see, but maybe we should end the week on a slightly optimistic note that political goodwill might be being built up here.
Let's hope so. Regardless of what I think of Donald Trump, peace with North Korea is a good thing. Jean-Claude Juncker visited Donald Trump, and the story in the media is, we're going to pause the trade war. I have not seen any actual evidence of that. Have you?
Well, it's worth saying, is it a pause, or are we actually undoing some of the trade war that's already occurred? If anything, it's certainly the former, right? That we have agreed not to go any steps further. The U.S. have been threatening these automobile tariffs. Those have been put on hold. The EU actually does appear to have given a little bit of a concession here to the United States, saying they're going to buy more American natural gas, which is probably something that was served up like kind of an easy pitch home run for the president, because he'd been railing about that German energy connection to Russia. So, implying that they were not reliant enough, self-sufficient enough on their energy. So, yeah, we're going to buy some more American natural gas. That's right. The positive news coming from the U.S. But you're right, we have not done really all that much more than stem the bleeding or the worsening of this trade war. And I will point out, the road back to normal trade relations is really difficult. Let's just look at someone like Emmanuel Macron, the French president, gave a press conference yesterday saying, look, we're not going to negotiate under threat here, that, we do want to pursue normal relations with the U.S., but we're not going to do so because another party is threatening us with more consequences if we don't. That's a pretty clear message saying, good work this week, but we can't live in an environment where, we're being held hostage. And finally, basically saying there's a limit to what the EU is going to be willing to do. I mean, we have been looking both to China and the European Union and seeing what those negotiating partners might do as a sign of goodwill to the U.S. The Chinese previously said, hey, we'll import more American agriculture. Macron saying not so fast. We have environmental protections, health, food safety laws in the European Union. I'm not going to cut those corners just so I can give in to U.S. demands that we buy a whole bunch of soybeans or GMO crops or something like that. So I don't know. And they also need to see these steel and aluminum tariffs go down. Absent that, all of this talk of friendly relations and transatlantic love that Juncker was saying, I think it's going to remain just talk. So they want action from our side first now.
Yeah. And our side is really good at talk.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see where this goes. Luke, great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Have a good weekend.
You too. You can follow Luke on Twitter at The Courier. We'll be back with more of your calls. Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code TOM. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Superbeats. More information is available over at tomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. We're reading today in the Thom Hartmann University Book Club from Threshold, the progressive plan to pull America back from the brink. This is chapter 3, page 53. It's titled Population. Sometime between mid-2007 and mid-2008, China exceeded the United States as the single largest emitter of carbon dioxide, dumping an estimated 7 billion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere per year in 2008, compared with the U.S. estimated 6.2 billion tons that year. But China is a vast and populous country. On a per-person basis, Americans are still the most profligate producers of carbon dioxide, with the average American in 2008 directly responsible for around 19.4 tons of greenhouse gas, not to mention the portion of China's emissions that went to make products shipped to and consumed by Americans.
Russia, with its less than modern industrial infrastructure, comes in second at around 11.8 tons per person. It's a cold country, and few homes are truly winterized. Then the European Union at 8.6 tons per person, and China at 5.1 tons per person. India, which is rapidly industrializing, is still one of the most efficient per person nations in the world at 1.8 tons of CO2 per person per year. Although that's because much of the country is so poor they don't have cars, the winters don't require much heat except in the extreme north, and the focus of India's industrialization has been digital rather than manufacturing. The largest driver of all these processes that are tearing our planet apart and putting all life at risk is the increase in human biomass. There are roughly 1 trillion pounds of human flesh on the planet right now, and assuming a worldwide average food consumption of around 3 pounds per person, in the U.S. it's almost 5 per day, we're consuming around 7 trillion pounds of food per year. One result of this is that over half of the entire net productive capacity of the planet, the entire planet's ability to produce edible products from photosynthesis, is now used up, displaced, or wiped out by humans, leaving every other life form on Earth to compete for the leftovers. Our population growth has not been particularly even. In the first 100,000 years of human history, we averaged around 20 to 50 million people total. 60,000 or so years ago, as we moved out of Africa and began to cover the world, we crept up to a few hundred million by the time of Christ, 2,000 years ago. Around the time of the Crusades, when the world was, by most definitions, pretty well populated, we were coming into conflict with each other all over the world. There were only 500 million of us on the entire planet. Not long after the American Revolution, we hit our first billion humans on planet Earth in 1800. The second billion didn't take 165,000 years. We doubled our population in just 130 years, hitting 2 billion in 1930, just as the United States was sliding into the Republican Great Depression. But that economic debacle didn't slow the growth of human numbers. By the year JFK was sworn in, just 30 years later, the planet had added another billion humans. The growth in population was driven largely by cheap, abundant oil and fertilizer and pesticides made from it, the farm and transportation equipment fueled by it, and the processing, packaging, and distribution system made possible by oil that lets a person in Iowa have a lunch of tilapia fish grown in ponds in China, lettuce and tomatoes grown in Mexico, wine imported from France, and a fruit cup of berries imported from Chile and strawberries from Nicaragua. In this environment of relatively abundant food, even in the third world, our fourth billion took us only 14 years to add, 1974. Our fifth billion only 13 years, 1987. And our sixth billion only 12 years, 1999. As oil became more expensive, raising the price of food indirectly, since most of us are actually eating oil, population growth first began to slow in the first decade of the 21st century. Part of this was attributable to birth rate declines in developed countries, part to an explosion in the death rates because of TB and AIDS in the third world, part to famine and associated diseases in sub-Saharan Africa as deserts moved south due to global warming. But while growth is slowing, we're still adding people at a rate many times faster than just 3 centuries ago. Topsoil all over the world is vanishing. Transportation is becoming exponentially more expensive. And as human population density increasingly resembles the inside of a petri dish, diseases ranging from TB, more than 1 billion people are infected, and more die from that than any other cause worldwide, to AIDS, to the constantly mutating common cold and related corona and flu viruses, remember SARS, represent a menace that is dramatically amplified by the 1 trillion pounds of human flesh such diseases inhabit. We are not the first culture to reach this threshold of population versus resources. As I discussed at length later in this book, the Maori of New Zealand, a group of Polynesian explorers, are a prime example of a culture that, like the Europeans who discovered America, thought they had found a land of unlimited wealth and food, but ultimately learned that there is a limit to growth, the biosphere, and that when you unthinkingly hit that limit, life can become hellish and democracy nearly impossible. But the concept of a limit to growth, or a finite world, was largely unknown to the classical economists on whose assumptions, formulas, and work our modern economy is organized. In fact, the classical and neoclassical economists, from Malthus to Jean-Baptiste Say to Marx to Friedman, would suggest that the Maori hit the limit not of their biosphere, the ability of the land of New Zealand to produce food, but of their technology. They would correctly point out that today New Zealand houses several million more people than it did when that island nation was entirely populated by Maori. And modern technology has ensured that not only is there enough food, but that surplus agricultural land has been turned to a growing of fuel and medicinal crops.
The book is Threshold.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday on our program, and Bernice in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Bernice, what's on your mind today?
Hi. I'm just really concerned that, I listen to a lot of progressive radio and I watch MSNBC and CNN, but when people call into shows, they are so critical that the Democrats are doing nothing to talk about a certain thing or to push back against various policies. And first of all, I know you know this, they don't get the coverage. That's the problem. It's not as exciting to put the Democrats on there when that Twitter in chief is sending out something.
Yeah, Mark Pocan was talking about this yesterday, that he and his colleagues, his progressive colleagues, cannot get on national television unless they're willing to trash Trump or talk about Russia. That's it.
Right, and so I wish that people would always just understand that. And you've always been an advocate for, well, if you don't like what's in the Democratic Party, join it and start changing it. And I know you tell them that a lot, but it's so irritating because I think it's very damaging to people wanting to vote for a Democrat. And if we don't vote for Democrats this fall, we are totally screwed.
Yeah, well, we're seeing this all over the country. The progressives are participating in the party. And progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the latest, obvious example, but she's one of many. They're actually progressives running for office and winning.
Right.
And progressive messages actually win. Let us not forget, Bernie Sanders resoundingly carried West Virginia and Michigan.
Right.
And these states that went for Trump would go for a progressive.
Right. Well, and I know there are conservative Democrats, but for the most part, Democrats are progressive.
Yes.
And you look at our party platform, and it is a completely progressive document.
It is.
And and people need to look back at that. So it didn't start with Bernie, although he was a really good, conveyor of the message. Mm-hmm. But it started with Democrats, and in the 50s or so.
Oh, in the 30s. FDR, the New Deal. The New Deal. I mean, it all started in March of 1931 when he was inaugurated.
Thank you. Yes, that's true. And my parents were FDR Democrats, as were their parents, and. We have been for all the rest of the time, but Trump has just gaslighted people so much that it's a frightening kind of phenomenon that we're watching right now.
Yeah, it really is, and then you hear these just like whiplash things like Rudy Giuliani coming out and saying that Donald Trump hires lawyers who are liars.
Oh my God!
And I mean, this is what he's saying, right? That Michael Cohen has been Donald Trump's lawyer for years and years and years. Is literally lies all the time. And
I didn't know who he was talking about. If he was talking about Trump or Cohen,
Right. Well, see, if he's saying Trump hires lawyers who are liars, Rudy is the most recent Trump hired lawyer. So what are we supposed to take from that, right? And so it's like quack. It's.
But if you're one of Trump's people, if you're a Trumpist, then you take everything he says.
There you go. The Trumpistas.
I am flabbergasted.
Yep, I agree. Bernice, I got to run, but thank you for the call. Great to hear from you. Mark in San Diego, California. Hey, Mark, what's on your mind today? Mark? Oh, hey, Mark, I'm sorry. That's my fault. I have not pushed the button. The magic button has to be pushed. Mark, you are now on the air.
Okay, you pushed my button. That's great.
Sorry about that.
Okay, you and I have talked about this before about exit polls and how all of a sudden they used to be so accurate, and all of a sudden they can't be reliable. There's a great article, a good read for you today on theroot.com by a reporter named Michael Harriet, and they also posted on Daily Kos. You know how when the government officials always admit that the Russians hacked in, but they always add this caveat, but no votes for change.
Right.
Well, this column calls BS on that because he says it's absolutely untrue. There's no proof that anything wasn't changed. And he does cite these exit polls, which honestly I didn't know till today were so wildly off target. For example, Florida, the exit polls show Clinton winning by 1.3. The actual result was Trump winning by 1.2, a gain of 2.5. North Carolina, same thing. Pennsylvania showed the exit polls show Clinton winning by 4.4, and Trump actually won by 1.2. That's a gain of 5.6.
What is the headline over at the Root? I want to find this. Oh, here it is right here by Michael Harriot.
Right.
Yeah.
And
evidence shows hackers changed votes in the 2016 election, but no one will admit it. I think that's probably true. And whether it was Russian hackers or anybody else, it shouldn't have been possible. But this is what the Help America Vote Act and giving $6 billion to the states to privatize elections has done for us, to us.
Well, he's maintaining that it doesn't make any sense for the Russians to go through all this big campaign, hacking into these systems, and doing all of this technology, and not actually, when they got in there, what they do, they just kind of looked around and didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That's like a runner running a 1 mile race and he just stops short of the finish line. It doesn't make any logical sense. If they got in there, why wouldn't they change votes? That was the whole purpose of the plan anyway.
Yeah, you would think. I'm perfectly willing to believe that. And again, I would add, if the Russians can do it, anybody can do it. And
well, he maintains that they had a convention where they asked these hackers. They had these 30 voting machines on the table, and they asked them to try and hack into them. They hacked into every single one. In fact, a 16-year-old hacker hacked into the machine from Georgia and changed votes just like that.
Oh yeah,
so,
that has been done repeatedly, and you can find a lot of that over on Bev Harris's blackboxvoting.com or .org website. And of course, Brad Friedman, bradblog.com. Brad is like all over this. I mean, he's like a walking, talking encyclopedia of this stuff. We should get him back on the program to talk about it.
This is the most important thing. I think this is even more important than the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't depend on the voting machines to count the votes accurately, all this other stuff about registering people, knocking on
and here's
doors.
why nobody wants to admit this. And I've told this story before. I'll continue to tell it. I back in the early 2000s when redshift started happening. It started happening in a big way in the 2002 election, and it just got worse and worse and worse right up through around 2008, 2012. And but it's still going on. But it's not as bad as it was early then. I went to Washington, D.C. and sat down. There was a conference of progressive talk show hosts and a number of senators and a few members of the House of Representatives, all Democrats. And, we spent most of the day together. And I brought up this issue of the insecurity of our voting machines. And what I was told by several elected Democrats was, we understand that's a problem. We hope to deal with it legislatively. We hope that the FBI is on it. I mean, there's a bunch of agencies that are looking into this, but we can't come out and say it because it'll cause people to say, well, why should I even bother to vote if the election is hacked? And it's like they're scared of their own shadow. I mean, you've got, if the Republicans had been losing elections consistently for years and there was a blue shift instead of a red shift, I guarantee you they'd be screaming from the top of the mountains and the voting machines would be gone within a year. But these timid Democrats, it just makes me crazy. It's like they although, to be fair, for 11 years on this program, Bernie Sanders came on every Friday and took people's calls. And for all those 11 years, Bernie consistently said we need to go back to paper and get rid of the machines. And Mark Pocan has been doing the same thing for the last couple of years as he's kind of taken that slot from Bernie on our show. And the Progressive Caucus is taking that position. It's just that the parties won't do it. And, of course, the news media won't do it. Thanks for the heads up, Mark. I'm going to do a lot of this with Monday.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back. I'm going to dig into this stuff over the weekend, and we'll talk about it on Monday. But there's stuff going on. It's Anything Goes Friday, anyhow. We'll be right back. And welcome back. And James in Lindale, Texas. Hey, James, what's on your mind? Thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. James?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. What's up?
Sorry. I want to say, I want to call about the Tuesday show and how proud I was of those descendant of slaves people calling in and telling you what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because I've been sitting there saying it, and sometimes you would just dismiss me, but I'm like, no, you're not listening. You're really missing the point. And with them calling in and backing me, with the exception of the young guy, he doesn't know enough yet. But I implore you, I dare you to have Yvette Carnell on there. I would love for you to understand our point of view. I would love for you to talk to Dr. Claude Anderson. I would love for you to talk to Sandy Darity about black economy and how broke we are, how we don't have anything.
Sure. Tweet me those folks that you're recommending, and I'll check it out. The thing that I really got that day, and I remember getting this a year or so ago when we did a similar show, and then it kind of wore off in the haze of my white privilege. It's not the world that I live in, waking up black every day, is how deep these wounds are. And how they get revisited literally every day, walking outside, not looking like me. And it's like, it's really, I got to tell you, James, I think it's really hard. And I'm probably more conscious of this than 99% of the white people you know. It's really hard for a person who lives in a white privilege bubble to keep conscious of the pain that is daily inflicted on people of color, particularly African Americans, in this country.
But see, when you use the people of color thing, I'm not a person of color. I am a descendant of a slave. I don't want to be grouped in with the people of color.
Yeah, we had this conversation last week.
I want my own category.
Okay.
Just like they say, the kids sit there and say, him, her, and don't call me that or whatever. Yeah. Don't call me that.
Okay.
I want to be in my own category.
But James, I regularly see black commentators on TV referring to themselves and to their colleagues as people of color. I mean, is this a language idiosyncrasy that's unique to James, or is there a movement with?
No. There's a lot of us out there saying that. Nobody. I don't want to be African American either, because it takes out the American part first. I'm an American first. I'm a black American. I'm a descendant of a slave. I am not a monolith of person of color. I'm just not. A lot of people up there do it because they think that's a good strategy, but it still leaves us behind.
Yeah.
And that's why I sit there and when I'm using that, or when I'm sitting there telling people, stop using the African American thing because it's not any good. Stop using the person of color thing because you're not having your own group. You're not in your own category.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't wait for the census to come out, because I think it's important to put that on the census as well. Are you a descendant of a slave? Because a guy come from Africa can be an African American. He's from Africa, he's an American, now he's African American. No, I don't want that. I'm none of that. I am an American first. I'm a black American first, descendant of a slave, and proud to be that. So when people say I'm a person of color, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want my own category. Right? And when you have a book like The Color of Law, I would implore that young man to read that book and understand how it's been set up against us.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent points all, James. Thanks for the call, and thanks for keeping this on my radar. I really, truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV. We'll be right back. It's 19 minutes past the hour. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code TOM. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Superbeats. More information is available over at tomsbeats.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program.
And Mark in Fremont, Ohio. Hey, Mark, what's up? Mark?
Hello, Tom.
Hey, you're on the air.
Tom. Hey, quick comment about the Betsy DeVos yacht in Ohio. Okay, I'm going to preface my comments. I have a son, 2 daughter-in-laws that are teachers, and by no stretch of the imagination am I a Betsy DeVos fan. But that yacht was not even close to $40 million. I mean, I don't know why people are saying that.
Well,
I just want to get that out there.
If it was new, I mean, it's a 160-foot yacht. You know, when I lived in the marina in Washington, D.C., and of course the boat that Louise and I bought was a 1986 Chris Craft, so, you know, it was relatively cheap. It was, shall we say, fully depreciated. But a brand new, and our boat was 46 foot. And they typically sell for, you know, $50,000 to $150,000 in that size at that age. But a brand new 46-foot, you know, 2-bedroom yacht right now, pretty much any manufacturer is going to cost over $1 million. So if you go from 46-foot 2 bedrooms to 156 feet with 20 bedrooms, I was surprised it was only $40 million.
It was not 20 bedrooms.
Well, 10 or 12, whatever it was.
Yeah, I lived along Lake Erie all my life, and I've seen a lot of yachts.
Yeah.
And it was not $40 million. Just to get, I mean, I don't know why they said that.
Well,
but
yeah,
fair is fair. So,
what's your point, though? Just that they're inflating the value for 10 yachts?
No, I think people are just going to try to pile on because you got so much money. I don't know.
Oh, I see. So it's like class envy or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My take is that the number is probably accurate, but, you know, that's just me. Mark, thanks for the call, and, you know, interesting point of view. Steve in New Boston, Michigan. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm well. What's up?
Hey, in regards to that last caller, I heard on the news yesterday that was one of 10 yachts that the DeVos family owns.
That's correct.
One of 10.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I was calling in about the scam callers and something to pass along. There's whocallsme.com. People can log on to that. I do all the time because we get these calls all the time. And you can see if other people are getting scam calls and if calls are being left with messages or people actually talk to them what they want.
So it's like a
good
database.
Place to check.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to bring up was look up on 25 quotes by Khrushchev. I believe history repeats itself. Look at his quotes. Look what he said back in the 60s, and look what's happening today.
Okay.
Every quote that man said is happening to us today.
Do you want to give me one or two specifics, Steve?
War. We're not going to go to nuclear war with Russia. They're going to conquer us from within, just like Khrushchev said they would.
Well, when Khrushchev said we will bury you, he was talking about a trade. He and Nixon were at the World Fair, and Nixon was saying, you know, look at our cool appliances. You know, there's no way you can compete with this. And Khrushchev was, no, Russian manufacturing is tremendous stuff. We will bury you. And what he meant was in the marketplace. And, you know, that's fairly clear. Can you give me a specific quote, Steve, that you think is prescient?
Just go there and take a look at the other 24. They're all pointing right at us with what the Russian plan has been.
All right.
And my last comment is I called it a couple of weeks ago, and I said, remember in November? And I'd like to add to that little quote that I made is then let us never forget.
Yeah, amen.
Because look at the mess we're in now.
Yeah, well said, Steve. Thanks a lot for the call. Spot on. Pastor John in New Haven, Connecticut. Hey, Pastor John, you are on the air. What's up?
Hey there, my brother Tom. First of all, thank you for talking about white privilege and reminding our audience about that. I think that if President Obama had done one of the things that Donald Trump's done, he'd get impeached.
Yes.
What do you think?
If Obama had simply had a second wife or a child out of wedlock or an affair, he never would have gotten elected in the first place.
You're so honest and forthright, and some people can't understand because you just lay it out the way it is. Now, a black guy called last week, and you got Joe Madison on this week, you know, about the Democrat thing, and I just want to mention that you were fine, okay? You just laid it out properly, you know. If it was not for Democrats, there'd be no Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare, and even the grants. That lady called about grants and student loans. We wouldn't have that, you know, but for them. So I think they're using people of color or black people or black Americans, and by the way, for the guy I just called, look at Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy was 7/8 white and 1/8 African, but it was not discernible, so he looked like he was white. Look up the case. The Supreme Court said that. But I think they're trying. Yeah, it's in the very beginning of it. It says that.
Pastor John, are you African American?
I happen to be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. But
I mean, it's all good, and forgive me if it's an inappropriate question. I was just wondering your perspective.
Yeah, but you know what? Who is black? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you've got black people who look as white as you. Okay. And so,
well, here's the problem.
Is
it's like ever since the race laws, well, which ever since the founding of America, the extension and rape was common in the South, and so you had slaves who were getting lighter and lighter, but the slave owners wanted to extend their property, their ownership, and so you got these so-called mulatto laws and all this other stuff. But the reality in America today is if you have enough African American in you to be visibly part African American, you're treated largely in the same spectrum, at least by white people, as somebody who's much darker or not, whatever. It's the same. You're going to encounter the same problems. You try to rent from Donald Trump's dad, you're going to have C on the rental application.
You're 100% right. You're right on target. Don't let anybody turn you around, okay?
Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot for the call, Pastor John.
My brother.
Good hearing from you.
Bye now.
Yeah, you have a great one. Have a great weekend. We'll be back. It's 27 minutes past the hour. Stick around.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday right after this, 27 minutes past the hour. We're reading today from Warrior Is by Harley and Robin Zephyr. It's the story of their great-grandfather who, in real life, killed Custer at Little Bighorn. And in fact, there's a map of the war, as it were, the battle. And they say that he is now the spirit keeper of Custer, which is remarkable. And there's a page-and-a-half introduction to the book, and then it becomes a historically accurate novel, basically. This story is the traditional and cultural account of the life of Nikogju Lakota warrior Mato Nyanpi, saved by bear, which his name in English, also later known as Scarleg. Warrior is based upon a true story. What you are about to read has been told to us through our family, passed down as oral history from generation to generation. Every family has its own story. This is ours. It's up to you to visualize and experience the events described herein in order to determine what you believe or what you choose to accept from what you learn from these pages. You've likely never read a story quite like this before. In Warrior Is, the reader is able to visualize and experience the events and circumstances of Mato Nyanpi's life. Many times the story is told in the present tense, such as if you were walking with Saved by Bear and his people as the events unfold. This was our original manner of storytelling. Other times the story is narrated in the past tense to account for a past perspective. Those of us who may not be entirely fluent in particular words or specific language, as much as we may be fluent in spirit and honest communication, the life messages many times can be more meaningful than just the written or spoken words. Warrior Is follows the timeline from the time of creation, moving through Saved by Bear's birth in 1849, and going up to July 1876, 2 weeks after the Grass Battle. Please exercise your free will and follow your conscience when reading this story. The spiritual side is called upon you to open your spirit so that you may read this tale and learn about these events through your own spirit. And, continues sort of like in that line, but here, right to the book. Prologue. He smelled the yellow of the sun. His spirit was alive and energetic. He felt the energy in his chest and all along the blood running through his veins. He looked to his left to see his great friend by his side. The strong scent of sage caressed his nostrils and reminded him of home. The movement over the high-running hilly ridge to the south caught his eye. He and Swift Bear sensed and felt the pathway opening up. So much had occurred so quickly, so suddenly, so dramatically. Their call to duty, his call to duty, filled his mind, his heart, his spirit. Today, it was meant to happen. It was presented to the people from the Creator. The plan was made. The warriors summoned. The preparation was done. It all led to this place, this portal in time. The sparse clouds to the west resembled mare's tails, and for a brief moment he remembered his white stone friend in the White Mountains. He remembered his spiritual commitment to protect his people, Grandmother Earth, and the sacred Hisapa. And time stood still for a moment, a small moment in time, through all of the ancient and original history of all the moments of time. And as the group of the horse-mounted soldiers rode briskly over the far ridge, the Creator shined that warm, nurturing light upon these warriors. Such as Creator had been doing since the beginning of time, since the beginning of Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky, and at the beginning of all things. All the moments of time forever had arrived here, now. It had come to this. Creator's strong will and great invisible hand had placed them here. It was the Creator all along. It always was. It always would be. For one to know what led the young Lakota warriors to be here at this fateful site near the Greasy Grass River on this warm, sun-drenched day, one must go back in time, way back to the beginning, when it was only the Creator, and the Creator of all things decided to create a new world. Her name would be Unsimaka, Grandmother Earth, and she would be created to hold and sustain life. All kinds of beings, all kinds of people would be given and placed upon and within her to show her love of life. And this is how it all began. Chapter 1, Origin. The human beings evolved from the spirit. Before arriving in Wind Cave, we were star people. Many of us came from a place called the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, an ancient star grouping and constellation that contains worlds comprised of the gift of life-giving water. Water is life, Mini Wikoni. The Pleiadian influence is an absolute, but those of us who claim to be relatives of the Pleiadians share a common bond with other indigenous people, regardless of where we are geographically on the earth. We will always remain Pleiadian star people. Spiritually, we have become human beings of different races and ethnicities, but the origin of our spirit is the water. And for us, and as to who we are, as the tribal people in a family way, our name is Minkoju, its evidence. It means life's subsistence through the gathering and planting by the waters and or river. The Minikochu spend their lives living by the waters. This is something that many of our own people do not know or understand, but this is our history, not only of our physical existence, but also the history of our spiritual existence on Unsimaka. The book is Warrior Is by Robin and Harley Zephyr.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and on the line with us is Congressman Rick Nolan. It's been a while since he's been on the show, and it's great to have him back. He represents the great state of Minnesota in the 8th District. His website, Nolan, NOLAN.house.gov, and you can tweet him at US Rep Rick Nolan. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you. It's a delight to be with you, and congratulations. I see you're now rated the #1 progressive talk show in the country. That's a pretty nice thing to have said about you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We're having fun. Your phone seems to be kind of going in and out here a little bit. I hope we can hold this together without having to call you right back.
We had a perfect connection, and I don't know what just happened.
Yeah. Maybe you need to stand by a window or something. But anyhow, you introduced, along with Congressman Mike Gallagher, the Go to Washington, Go to Work ad, which basically says that if you have been, if you're a federal official or a candidate, it says it bans federal officials and candidates from campaign fundraising activities while Congress is in session. Tell us about this.
Yeah, Tom, I've been jokingly called Congressman Rick Van Winkle, having served in the 60s and then went on a little 32-year hiatus and came back here in 2020. And what a difference I witnessed. And I had my staff do a research. Campaign spending has dramatically increased, maybe fivefold. My first election contest, I think, was around $250,000. This most recent one was closer to to $25 million.
Wow.
The number of open rules in the House of Representatives in the 70s, 91%, meaning that anybody and everybody could offer any amendment that they wanted in the committee and in the full House, have it considered, voted on. Today, less than 5% of the rules are open rules. 95% of them are closed or struck.
So is this a structural change that Republicans have put into place to make it harder for Democrats to amend their crazy legislation? Or, I mean, why would this have happened?
Well, it makes it harder for anybody. I mean, whether you agree with them or not, most people come to Congress that they would like to have heard. My submit to that it's all about the money. Why?
Yeah.
Real democracy is a lot of hard work.
Yep.
The floor of the House, listen. Everybody.
I'm with you, Congressman. We're dropping out every third word. I'm going to put you on hold, sir, for just a moment and ask Shira to get on the phone with you and call you right back, and we'll continue this conversation because this is good stuff. Shira, he's on line 10. Please have the congressman call us right back. This is Congressman Rick Nolan, but I really want to have a phone line where you can actually hear what he's saying. So while we're waiting for Congressman Nolan, which will take just a moment, I'm guessing. Eric in Erie, Pennsylvania says here you're leaving the U.S. to go to Germany?
Yeah, happy Friday, Tom. This is actually an update per your request. If you think back to the campaign era in September, October of, pre...
Were you one of the folks who said if Trump gets elected, I'm out of here?
Yeah, well, you had posed that question, and people were calling in talking about it, and I told you I'm absolutely doing it. I just had a court case I had to wait for it to complete. In its 10th year, I've been suing a Pentagon contractor for malfeasance in the criminal justice system. And, they're rich and have a major Manhattan firm defending them, so they've been able to stall the case for 10 years. So I'm getting a trial date in early December. I anticipate a slam dunk win for a victory. The only question will be the money, which the defendant will appeal, and there'll be a couple of months, and then I get cut a check and I go. I leave JFK. I land in Frankfurt 9 hours later. 2 hours after that, I get off a train in Berlin. I walk into the U.S. Consul General. I hand them my United States passport in several pieces. I renounce my United States citizenship and declare myself an asylum-seeking refugee in the Federal Republic of Germany on a claim of religious discrimination. I want to live free of.
Good luck with that. So Eric, this is your plan. So keep us up to date on how this goes and call us back, as it gets implemented. Congressman Nolan is back on the line. Do we have a phone that works now?
Yeah, I think so. How does it sound on your end?
It sounds great. Baruch Hashem. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's get back to this Go to Washington, Go to Work Act. You were saying it's costing a fortune now.
Tom, real democracy is a lot of hard work. And back in the 70s, everything came, and throughout our history, everything came up under what we call open rules. In the 70s, 91% of all bills came through committee, came to the floor of the House under open rules where anybody could offer an amendment, have it heard, have it argued, have it voted on. 91% of the bills came before us under that rule. Today, it's less than 5%, okay? Simultaneously, my first election contest was probably $250,000. This recent one was approaching $25 million. Okay, my point is that the role of money in politics is dramatically changing the way the Congress works. You see the open rules going from 91% down to 5%, and you see simultaneously all this money going into politics. Well, what's the connection? Here's the connection. Under closed rules, members of Congress don't have to be on the floor of the Congress listening to a bunch of amendments from other members. So, for example, we go into session on a Monday, no votes till 6:30. Oh, isn't that nice? We can go across the street to the Democratic or the Republican call centers and raise money all day. Tuesday, Wednesday, there'll be a procedural vote or two around between 12 and 1. Oh, good. You can go across the street and raise money all day, all morning, and then you can go back in the afternoon and raise money. And then, because the members are not offering their ideas for debate and consideration.
Right.
So members have been relegated to the position of becoming, middle-level telemarketers dialing for dollars instead of being on the floor of the House arguing about the great issues of our time and listening and hearing everybody's ideas and voting on them.
Go ahead. Congressman, if I could insert an anecdote here real quickly. I was at a cocktail party in Washington, D.C. With Grover Norquist a couple of years ago. And, he happened to be there. He wasn't throwing it. But there were a number of Republicans there, and one of them was a Republican member of Congress. And we got in this conversation about, raising money and all the, and I said, he was complaining about it. And I said, well, would you support a bill that eliminates corporate and billionaire money in our political system? And he said, don't tell anybody my name. But yes, I would absolutely support that. And I think the vast majority of my colleagues would. He said, we are wholly owned by these big companies and these billionaires, and it's getting old. Back to you, sir.
Well, if I understood you, I'm in the, but if I understood you, I think what you said there, he's right. And I'm delighted to have a young Republican, Mike Gallagher out of Wisconsin, supporting me on this. And I can't tell you how many members have said, that's a good idea, but, we're going to need a lot of money in the next election.
Right.
So what happens is then most of the Republicans aren't happy about it either, even though they're in the majority. Yep. They all came with ideas they wanted to have heard and considered. So then the bills that do come before us are some combination of partisan positioning designed to make the other party look bad. And, we've always had areas of disagreement, but it's gotten so bad, it's hard to come together on the things we agree on. Right. Because of the rules. Process matters.
So your solution is?
I'm sorry, what?
So your solution is what?
Well, there's a number of solutions. One of them is to reverse Citizens United, to take all the corporate money out of politics.
Right.
That's all dark money. It's distorting truths, and it's discouraging people from running. It's undermining a real democracy. This bill here is a part of a broad approach, but I think it's a really important one, which basically says, go to Washington, go to work on the people's business. Don't go to Washington, run across the street to the Republican or the Republican call center and dial for dollars. That's not what you were elected for.
Yeah.
I have never personally darkened the room of the Democratic, let alone the Republican call center, but I managed to raise enough money to defend myself and get my message out at election time. Mm-hmm. But I go to Washington, I go to work on the people's business, and I think that's what everybody should be doing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So you have Congressman Mike Gallagher, a Republican, and you are introducing this Go to Washington, Go to Work Act. If people want to call their member of Congress and ask them to support it, this is in the House of Representatives, called 202-224-3121. If you don't know who represents you in the House of Representatives, give me your zip code and they'll tell you. And Congressman Rick Nolan, who we're talking to, what else can people do to support this legislation, sir?
Well, that would be enormously helpful. Mike Gallagher and I, we wanted to. I've been working on it for a while here now, and Mike wanted to review it. He reviewed it. We wanted to get it out there before this August recess, to give the bill a chance to get heard by people throughout the country. And hopefully they'll be calling and writing to their members of Congress and saying, get on this bill. It makes sense. We didn't send you to Washington to become a... And by the way, both the Democratic and the Republican parties recommend to their new members and their existing members spend 20, 30 hours a week raising money. Well,
yeah.
Holy cow. And you have to have structured rules to make that kind of time available.
Yeah.
So it's not coincidental that the rise in money in politics parallels in a negative direction the decline in open rules.
Yeah.
So and oh, by the way, there's another poll that corresponds that shows as the money has risen, the open rules have diminished, the esteem or the prestige of the Congress has reached an all-time low somewhere, below Richmond.
Sir, that music means we're hitting a break here. Congressman Nolan, thank you so much for dropping by today. It's great talking with you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of Anything Goes Friday. Stick around. Welcome back. Jan in Snowflake, Arkansas, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Jan, what's on your mind?
Hi, Jan. Hi, Paul. Tom. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm Snowflake, Arizona.
Uh-huh.
The government is selling off part of the petrified national forest for fracking.
Oh, no.
And our water situation here in Arizona is very fragile. We have no restrictions on water use in the state of Arizona. So,
does Arizona share an aquifer? Are you part of the? You're beyond the Ogallala aquifer, aren't you? Is the aquifer that you guys are drilling into basically confined to the state of Arizona, or does it cover large areas, or are there multiple small aquifers under Arizona?
Well, there are small, but there's one very large one called the Coconino Aquifer.
Okay.
And they will be drilling into that.
Yikes.
For all the listeners that might be interested, at very least, signing a petition, go to nofrackingarizona.org.
Okay. nofrackingarizona.org. Thank you, Jan. I will. I'll try to repeat that after the break too. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate it. Good talking with you. James in Spokane, Washington. Hey, James, what's on your mind?
Nam Yoho Renge Kyo to my fellow travelers out there.
Nam Yoho Renge Kyo to back at you. What's up?
Thank you. We need to rebrand the Democratic Party, I think, would probably be a good solution to some of the problems, as in the Labor Party, or at least get labor into the title.
Yeah. Healthcare, education, and labor. Those are the big three, in my opinion.
Tom, let me remind you, I know you know, but a lot of your listeners do not know the specifics about the labor wars, the history of labor in this country.
Sure, from the 1870s to the 1930s you're talking about?
Yes, in the late 19th century. Haymarket Square, those things.
1880s,
We don't know. We need a pamphlet out there to re-educate the people, because when you don't remember, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And that's what's coming. Maybe we can head it off before it gets to that level, if we educate the people again.
I haven't, it's been a lot of years since I've looked at at high school curriculum. Do you know if any of the labor movement is being covered in high school curriculum anywhere in the United States anymore?
Oh, it would be so counterproductive to the interests, whatever they may be, that of course not, for fear that we would frighten the children. You know, of course not.
I wonder how many of our viewers who are under, say, 30 even know what Haymarket Square was or is, or what it means. Or Pullman Quarters, if that makes sense to them.
They need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
the Ludlow
it
massacre.
blind.
I mean, how many people under 30 know what the Ludlow massacre is? If they don't know these things, they don't know the Great Flint Sit-Down Strike of 1935. If they don't know these things, they literally don't know the history of the United States, and really they don't know the history of the American middle class. So yeah, James.
The preteens working in the factories.
Yeah, absolutely. James, all excellent points. Thank you so much for the call, and thanks for watching us there in Spokane. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this. It's Anything Goes Friday. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code TOM. The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Superbeats. More information is available over at tomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, THOM, xchairtom.com. Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook.
And Bob in San Jose, California, listening on AM 910. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Well, two things briefly. One, there's another kind of a scam, and these are people that masquerade themselves as charities. They have names that you see on caller ID. It says like Cancer Support Foundation. And you go, who the heck is that? And it turns out it's a fundraising organization that gives about 5 to 10% of the money they raise to a real charity.
Yeah, it turns out that there were 2 or 3 of these that preyed on veterans, and they all positioned themselves as conservative and Republican-leaning organizations. They used a lot of conservative Republican language, and they scammed tens of thousands of American veterans, mostly Fox News watchers. Yeah.
I have a way to deal with that. I have a answering machine that I have set to answer always on the 4th ring, and it speaks. It on the 2nd ring, it tells me the phone number somebody's calling from. If I don't recognize it, I don't pick up the phone.
Right.
And these folks will not leave a message. It has a generic answer. It says, please leave a message after the tone. And that's it. And they never leave a message because they really want to talk to you and lay a guilt trip on you or something. Right. And so I found that I get 9 or 10 of those calls a day on a landline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
do you have any way of tracking and blocking the numbers?
Well, I'm not blocking anything, but I just have a thing that says if you have a blocked number, I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
My telephone company has that, but if they have an unblocked number, then my answering machine will speak to me with the number. If in the bedroom or in the kitchen I see a display, and in both cases, if I don't recognize it, I don't answer.
Yeah, I'm looking at the blocked calls on my phone here. I've got blocked voicemails that I didn't even know I had. But yeah, it's I guess with a cell phone you've got a little more.
Cell phone has an ID thing, but I have seen the latest thing that's there. That's the first 6 digits of your phone number will be on that one. The last 4 are random.
Yeah, that's the one that caught me once, and and in fact one of the voicemails that I've got is from a number that is the first 6 digits are identical to my phone number.
I tend not to get voicemails from them. They tend not to leave messages in my case. But I don't call them back.
Yeah, good idea. Thanks a lot for the call, Bob. I appreciate it, and for your contribution to our conversation. Paul in Chicago. Hey, Paul, what's up?
How are you? I guess we're going to end with the same thing you started out with, that scam letter you got.
Mm-hmm.
I got one about 5 minutes before you went on the air.
Oh, really? Today?
Pretty much the same letter, but we were asking for like 1950.
Yeah. See, I think that, in fact, there was a space between the $ and the amount, as if they had inserted it. I think they're running a database with probably like 1 million email addresses and passwords that they bought on the dark web, and they're and they're doing a mail merge thing.
And I actually had 2 accounts that still use that password.
Yeah.
With
change
my
them
email
right
address,
now.
I spent a couple of hours trying to change them, and one site didn't allow you to change your password. I had to call their technical end, and they had to actually manually change the password.
Jeez.
But I wanted to say one thing about when Microsoft dials in and gets access to your computer, there's no back door. There's actually software which allows them to access your computer by an IP address, and you have to give them permission.
Yeah, I know that.
So you're there while they do it. And
Thank you for correcting my imprecise language, because Apple has remote access software also, and you can activate it and allow somebody to come in.
I try to avoid Microsoft, but I can't avoid it as much as you might.
Yeah.
But they don't have backdoors in, at least none that I am aware of. I'm fairly technical.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but thanks a lot for the call, Paul. I appreciate it. And we only have 10 seconds, to go until. In fact, there we go. We're out of time. Boy, what a day! Because we still have a bunch of callers about scams and hacking the votes. This hacking the votes thing, I'm going to dig into this over the weekend, and I just sent that to you too, Sean. I think this might be this person might be a guest. But there's a lot going on in the news. We will be back on Monday with full and comprehensive looks at everything that happened over the weekend, and and it is happening on Monday. And where are we going with this country, and what can we do to turn America back into the progressive, freedom-loving, people-caring country that we once were in some regards, and make it better. And the way to do that is for you to get involved. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. I'll see you Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
Cameron Hughes travels the world looking for the finest wines and then bottles them in this lot way so that you can save an enormous amount of money. Last night, Louise and I had the 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. It was extraordinary. You can learn more at chwine.com/Tom. The new X chair, it's the X3, is just such a big upgrade from even the old X chair, which I think was one of the very best chairs, if not the best chair, office chair on the market. Check it out at xchairtom, T-H-O-M, xchairtom.com. Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by Super Beats. More information is available over at tomsbeets.com, THOMSBEETS.com, or by calling 800-568-9889. Oh, hi. I was just meditating, listening to the sounds of the ocean from this app, from my brainwaves that are being detected by the Muse headband. To find out more about it, check out choosemuse.com, code TOM.
The Thom Hartmann Program is brought to you in part by the Aiden Forecast, an investment newsletter with weekly updates of leading market indicators and a monthly deep dive into what the details of the economy and the markets mean for investors and retirees. On the web at aidenmarkets.com.